This episode is brought to you by Farm Bureau Financial Services, Zach Miller Agency. If you're looking for an insurance agent with a personal touch, someone willing to have the real conversations about what's important to you, assistance with submitting claims, and offering quality coverage options, Farm Bureau Financial Services, Zach Miller Agency may be the place for you. Whether you need home, auto, farm, commercial, life, or health insurance, we're here for you. Check us out at agentzachmiller.com. Farm Bureau Property and Casualty Insurance Company, Western Agriculture Insurance Company.
My next guest is the Education and Outreach Coordinator at Bright Horizons here in Norfolk. Bre, thanks for making time to be here today.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you. I'm Zach Miller with my co-host Vance Neidig.
Thanks for coming on, Bre.
Thank you.
And we are touching base with Bre Hember today. Hember?
Yes.
Did I get it right? All right.
You did.
Good. So I kind of want to get a little bit of background on you. I know we're here to talk about Bright Horizons, but I think people would like to know kind of the person we're talking to a little bit.
Of course.
Are you originally from the area?
I am. I was born in Norfolk, raised in Osmond. I'm sure you guys know. Super tiny by Pierce. I went to school there, graduated. I went to college at Northeast, and then I met my husband shortly thereafter, and we moved to Oakland, Iowa. It's like on the border by Council Bluffs.
Okay.
We lived there for quite a while. I loved it. I graduated. I had my bachelor's degree. I was going to teach, and I never thought, no way, I would ever come back here. But then, for some reason, I got an itch, late last year, and I was like, we got to move. We have to move right now.
From Oakland?
Yeah. And I don't know what we're starting our family, so that kind of scared me too. So we moved back in December. I lived in Norfolk, and now I live in Pierce.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How was your high school experience? Was it pretty good? Was it in Osmond?
Yes, I graduated with not even 20 kids.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was all right. I did all the things. I did sports and everything. I was involved. But it was a small school, so
right.
Small school things.
I always see that with small schools, you pretty much do all the activities, all the sports, all the things.
Yeah, and if you don't, good luck. And everybody knows everything, and
right.
Everybody's related except for me. It's how it was.
Right. How did you decide on a college? How was that process for you?
The college process was a little bit, I shouldn't say different because I feel like everybody switches their majors in colleges several times. But for me, I never could figure out, even when I graduated, what I was going to do. For a long time, it was education and things like that. I could never find something like that not that I wasn't good at, but something I could truly see myself doing for the rest of my life. Because even right now, a career to me is I don't really want to work the rest of my life, but I slowly started to figure it out. And so I ended up just landing on education. And then right before I graduated, I actually went to Northeast for 2 years, and then I transferred, took some time off, which was much needed. And then I went to an online college out of Iowa, which allowed me to do Zoom, which was incredible for me. I don't really love online full time, but I still got a little bit of in classroom being on Zoom. And so that was great. That program was great. It was Buena Vista out in Iowa. Highly recommend.
Yeah. That's really good.
Yeah.
And it was education. And did you have I was creeping on your Facebook. Was it a minor in something too?
Yep. I was going to be a history teacher. And right before I was about to student teach, I was like, I don't want to do that. So my advisor, I owe her a lot because she was probably so stressed. But she was like, you can have this degree right now, but you won't get your certification. And I'm like, that's okay.
I'll take the degree.
I don't think I really want to deal with working in a school anymore, because at that point I had been doing a bunch of education and teaching stuff, and it was just I like working with people and educating people, but just not in an everyday school setting.
Right.
But I love history.
You're kind of doing that now, though, right?
Yes.
You're the education and outreach coordinator, so
exactly.
You're kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah, and I accidentally fell into this role, but it fits me perfectly. Did I need my degree for it? No. But and it sucks that I didn't, but
That's okay.
I got here, so.
It's good to have that degree sometimes.
Right, it feels good.
Yeah. Before Bright Horizons, were kind of in the same field, or were you right out of college going to Bright Horizons, or how did that kind of fall into you?
No, I graduated mid last year, 2 years ago. Goodness, I forget. But I was doing a lot of special education, para work for a long time. And then I did substitute teaching full time for a long time in the Council Bluff schools. And you can only imagine. Mm-hmm. That's pretty, the stuff that I witnessed there is pretty crazy. And so I was in it and I enjoyed it, but I could not do it for the rest of my life. Like I couldn't see it. And it sucks because I got so many compliments all the time that I was like naturally good at it. And I felt good at it, but I just was like, this is not for me fulfilling. Like I would go crazy.
What'd you think of the special ed side? I know my wife kind of dabbles in a little bit in that. She runs an in-home daycare, so we have a special needs kid that comes here, and she loves it.
Yeah, it's so mentally like challenging sometimes, but it also is so fulfilling. That's why I loved it, and I know she probably can relate the same way. Like in education, especially, and you know, special education is sort of even more specific. Like education does not pay well, and nobody does it for the money. I mean, I don't even do what I do now for the money,
Right.
but especially when you work with students like that, like there are really, really tough days, but then there's like really, really, really good days. And like you have to have like a certain threshold and personality to work with kids like that. So, I mean, I loved it, but they're looking back on it, I'm like, I don't know how people do that for so long. And I like praise them for being able to do that. But I'm somebody who can like recognize what I can and can't do. So I worked on my patience a lot, but I don't think I could do it that long.
Yeah, it's definitely an acquired taste, as we put it that way.
Right,
sure.
right. It's an acquired like talent.
Right. So after that, how did you end up as the education and outreach coordinator at Bright Horizons?
So when I moved back in like late November, early December, I had applied to a job out at Northeast because I was working shortly at a college in Council Bluffs, and I really, really enjoyed it. And higher ed is something that I always thought I would do too, because it worked with my education degree and things like that. And so I tried for Northeast. I really thought I had gotten this job, and because the interview went well, everything, like it was picture perfect, and I thought I was going to get this job. And then randomly I got the call that they were like, we're not going to fill this position, and you know, sorry. And so I was just like shocked and wasn't sure what I was going to do. And so I hopped on Indeed, and I was like, okay, like I got to find something, because like at that point we had been there for like a month, and I was getting bored and bills to pay and everything. So I saw that Bright Horizons had posted like just a generic like advocate position, and our executive director is actually like a family member of mine, and I had known what she had done for a long time, but I never really knew specifics of it. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to apply for this. Even if it's temporary, while I find something, it'll be fine, because like they'd help me out, whatever. And I ended up getting it. And then the position that they had posted was not the original one that I had ended up taking. This position that I have now is kind of what I've always been doing, but it's a new title for me in this position. So it worked out really great. Like I wasn't expecting to get this job. Wasn't expecting to like love it as much as I do, but I was in a really unique position, because the positions that were open yet not open were flexible and kind of moving around. So I got to kind of not necessarily pick what I did, but they kind of took what I was good at, and they were like, we think you'd fit here better, and this person would be here. And it all like worked out perfectly.
Kind of gave you a position that would work well with your skill set. Mm-hmm. That's good. Mm-hmm. Going back to the higher ed at Northeast, we've had a couple people on here. One for sure that they were told they were going to have a job, and then said that the position wasn't going to get filled.
That's a lot recently with them.
And yeah, it is interesting.
They have I don't know if it's necessarily turnover or what, but I was totally shocked by that, because everything had went so well. The interview was great, and like I can usually like, I'm not a person who like can be like BS. So like if I know that like the vibe isn't there and I'm not going to get it, like I'm not going to put my foot in it at all. But I had no clue. Like it caught me off guard. And I was like I was pretty like upset about it, because I was so like, they were pretty much telling me that I had gotten it in a way.
So you're like ready for it.
Yeah. And then I got no explanation. And like, I'm somebody who is like, always thanks somebody for the opportunity and things like that. But I had called this hiring manager back, and I was like, can I get some feedback? Like what was I missing or things like that? And never heard back. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry to kind of go down that path. I just found that interesting that we've had a couple people say that. So
yeah, it's common. Like I've heard it even myself. Huh. And a lot of stuff on their like hiring pages is up frequently. And
I've heard that a lot too lately, that there's stuff posted out there, but then like it never gets filled.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So kind of getting into Bright Horizons, can you give our listeners that may not know an idea of what Bright Horizons is?
Yes. In a nutshell, we are a nonprofit advocacy organization for survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault, human trafficking. And we can offer, and I like to say advocacy services as like an umbrella term, because we offer things such as like advocacy in the forms of like financial help. I say that not because we directly pay anybody's bills. Like sometimes people may think we wish that was possible, but it's not. We're a nonprofit. We can help with housing that way. Sometimes we can help with certain assistance and things like that. It all kind of depends on funding and what it looks like in case by case basis and things like that. We can also help with donations in the form of like essentials. We have a donation room that is essentially like a little store for our clients and our survivors to kind of come and go as they need, get whatever they may need, food, essentials, clothing, household goods, things like that. We can offer criminal and legal advocacy. We can help with protection orders, whatever they may need. And we have a criminal justice liaison who can accompany them to court, which lately has been really heavily utilized because I think, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, but the legal side of domestic violence and sexual assault, one of the biggest hurdles is like the legal side of it, and they don't understand and they are afraid. We understand, and so they really lately have voiced that they really like that. But there's a bunch of different things. We also offer bilingual services. We have advocates who can speak English and Spanish. We offer support groups, English and Spanish, and a kids group as well. We're on campus. I could go on and on.
Do you have attorneys that work directly with you guys that offer their services, or do you not have that ever happen?
I wish we did. We don't. I mean, we have some that we prefer, and we'll just refer them, but that would be like amazing. And
Will some of them do that pro bono or no?
Not that we have heard of. I know that's something we have been wanting to like maybe look into, but even with Norfolk, like trying to find an attorney for anything right now, good luck.
Is there a lot of them in town that handle domestic violence and sexual assault cases? Do you know?
I don't really know because I don't deal a lot with the criminal side of it, but
usually when you're on the victim side, you're on the state side, so you don't technically have to have support like a legal counsel all the time. But
yeah,
so
that's exactly right.
So a lot of the state would take that burden.
Right.
Do you have? Excuse me. Is there anyone living in the building?
Like in our building?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I guess I briefly touched on that. We do offer housing help with housing programs and things like that, but in all three of our offices, because we have offices based in Norfolk, O'Neill, and Ainsworth. And
I didn't realize that.
Yes, and I meant to mention that too. A lot of people don't realize that either. Those are the newer ones, Ainsworth being our newest. And at all three places, we have emergency shelters. And our shelters here in Norfolk can hold up to 5 families. It's confidential, things like that. And we provide essentials for them, groceries, transportation.
This is for like if somebody's got to get out right away.
Like fleeing, actively fleeing. And you can house up to 5 families in there because there's 5 big bedrooms. And then we have a transitional house, which is like a condo townhome situation that 2 families can live in, and it's a larger dwelling, so they're there for a longer time, whereas like our transitional or our emergency shelter is like 30 days.
And I'm sure there's an emergency number, right?
Yes, we do have a crisis number.
That's
crisis line and text, and I'm on call as we speak, so I probably should have my phone out.
Oh yeah, you can get it out if you need to.
I'm okay.
Is that number utilized quite a bit?
Yeah. I would say a lot more so like the our call line. And a lot of that is kind of just off the wall stuff sometimes. Like a lot of people call us because there's not very much, there's very little resources for like people without homes and people struggling and of any kind of, violence, trauma, anything. So we get a lot of calls regarding those types of things because they have nowhere to go. And then in just the state in general, there's not very much. So like you Google like shelter near me and we come up right away.
Because you guys have, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you guys, because you guys have to stay in the domestic violence, sexual assault, that area, right?
Yes. Yeah. We're not super government bound, so we try to help as many people as we can. But like our mission obviously is to assist those who are.
That's basically what I was going to ask. If somebody does reach out to you, you guys don't just like ignore them. You try to figure something out. Whatever happens.
Yeah, because we see a lot of people who we get a lot of custody, we get a lot of divorce, we get a lot of homelessness, and substance abuse and things like that. And there's a lot of community things that we try to work with. We work really well with the Well. The Well is fantastic. The rescue mission in town here is great. So we really try to utilize the limited resources and referrals that we have. but it's still hard because there's still a lot of things that we can't help.
Yep.
And Bright Horizons is just females and kids, right?
No, anybody, regardless of gender, sexual orientation.
That's a misconception that I didn't realize.
That's common. That's common. And I mean, the majority of our survivors that we have seen and clients are women, of course, but that does not, and we know that does not mean, or that we wouldn't serve men.
Okay. Is that something that's always been the case? I guess for some reason, I don't know, back in high school, there was a presentation made, and I always thought it was women and children only. That's good to know for people out there that, because it does happen on both sides.
Long ago when they first, I'll have to look into that.
I'm kind of old. Going back to the financial side, outside of the housing, I know you probably explained. I was trying to write some stuff down.
Sorry, I talk very fast.
You said not bills, but kind of what do you help with on the financial side?
It just kind of depends, like what the situation is and what we have funding for at the time.
Because probably every situation's different.
Yes,
obviously.
like we'll see somebody that's like, I need my car fixed. I need a new battery, and we're like, well, we really can't just directly help with that. But sometimes we're able to get funding that can help somebody pay somebody's utility bill, or sometimes, the situation comes where he broke my car windshield and I don't really have any way to get to work and things like that. So it's just a different type of situation. And it's all timing too with funding and things like that, because working off grants is very difficult.
Do you guys work with, and not when the case happens, but like throughout the year, do you guys work with property owners, business owners, stuff like this, that you like foster a relationship
Yes.
that say, hey, if we ever have this, can we try to figure something out to work
Yes.
this out? We'll push people to you, but like, let's work together and try to make this
That's
happen.
a really good question. We do have some that are really great to work with us, and are really understanding and know that we will help our survivors however best we can. They just have to give them the chance. But I would say, like, on the opposite side of things, that there are probably, I don't want to say even more that don't like to work with us. But I mean, that's just Norfolk. Like, landlords in Norfolk are pretty tough. So
Yeah, they're probably worried about the guaranteed rent pay.
And they worry about the trauma that may come,
The situation.
the law enforcement aspect of things, like, and they really shouldn't, because there's really no, like, once survivors are out, that's what they want. They want to be left alone. But I can understand I don't know, maybe a stereotype that they think these people are coming with emotional baggage and issues and things like that, because that's just what happens to people with trauma.
Right. What about the donate? You said there was a donation store. Does that
Yeah.
come from the community
All
businesses
community.
and stuff?
Yes, it's we're always overfilled, which is great. But we're always it's always filled with things, but there's always things we're in need of.
What are some of the things you need most?
Almost continuously, it's like hygiene products and toilet paper, things like that. That goes the quickest. We get a lot of clothing, which is great, but clothing doesn't go as quickly as one would think. Household products, like people rebuilding and restarting their lives because they have essentially nothing. So that's really good too.
As far as you kind of call it, I'm assuming they're the same thing, but clients and survivors. Is there a difference between the two? Or?
No, it just kind of depends. People prefer different terms. I guess it's more so. It's just kind of like if I'm at work or who am I talking to. It's just a situational thing. There's nothing like specific language beyond like victim and survivor, because that's something we're trying to, and society is kind of working on, that those two words aren't synonymous and aren't the same, because there are victims who are survivors, but there's survivors who are victims, but there are some victims that are not survivors. So that's the really only differentiation. But like client and survivor, that's just kind of my working brain.
I figured, but I just wanted to make sure I was following with you.
I appreciate that.
And you mentioned human trafficking. How do you guys get involved in that side of it?
That is something we're still, and like the world is still trying to get into, because it's always evolving, it's always hidden, it's always changing. We see a lot of it through Norfolk, just because of like it's I-80 that it runs through here. Sorry, I should know, but I don't.
US 81?
US
81. No, I-80 would be way south. That's interstate way
That's the
south.
interstate way
That goes
south,
through
yeah.
Nebraska.
Yep.
Okay, what is
down
the
by Lake
major?
275 and US 81.
275
Okay,
and 81.
yes. That is a big, I mean, those major highways are hubs for that. And we don't see a lot of it, but we see bits and pieces of it, but we know that it's here, and we're trying to learn to look into it and things like that. But it's like even still so hard to find and confusing for like law enforcement and things like that. So that's something we want to work on.
I think it's always been confusing to me. Like I've never met. It's obviously a huge problem, and you hear about it all the time. But I've never met somebody that's been through it. So that's what's weird to me is like, how have I never met even in circles?
Yeah,
it's
crazy because I think part of that is because human trafficking is largely in areas of like low income and poverty and with minorities, unfortunately. But, and I think around here, I see a lot of like misunderstanding about what human trafficking is and what it really looks like, because I see so many, and I know you probably do too, that like, oh, somebody followed me at a Target and I think it's human trafficking, or they put $100 bill on my windshield. Like that commonly is not human trafficking. Human trafficking is people who are falling into or already are into like prostitution and sex work, and like they can't get out of it because they have essentially nothing to lose.
That's kind of my thought on like what real human trafficking is now. It's not like it's not the Taken movie. It's that you're just a prostitute that can't get out of it.
Yes,
Somebody
like you have nothing to lose. You have no resources. If you were to leave, it's going to be harder to leave because you're going to be broken on your own. Yep. And then I think a lot of, and this is something I'm learning too, is that sex trafficking doesn't always have to be commercial or like in a big ring with a pimp and things like that. Like it can be a single person who brings multiple people over to have sex with like their daughter or their son or things like that. Because if it doesn't have to be a large scale. And I think that's what, again, the movies have really glamorized. And I shouldn't say glamorized, but they have Hollywood.
They make you think like, that's what it is. Yeah,
that it's this like huge money thing. And a lot of times it is, but it's human trafficking is also like small scale.
Is that common around here?
I would say the smaller scale probably is. And a lot of people don't realize even that they may be a victim of it, because the one instance that sticks out of my mind, and this isn't nobody we've worked with specifically, but like I was saying earlier, like this person was a child and their dad would bring friends over into the basement, and mom didn't know, and they would all take turns with his daughter, and it was like a routine thing. And like dad was getting money and alcohol in exchange for things like that. That was a story I was told at a training, but that I think happens I shouldn't even say quite a bit because I don't know the exact stats, but I think that's probably a lot of what people don't think about. And I mean, child sex abuse is something that's a big problem, especially in small towns.
Small towns specifically?
Yes, but like scale wise, and actually I should probably reword that. Maybe not as like a higher scale.
Not as many, but it's a higher per capita probably because you have
and because it's less reported and less, it's more hidden in small communities because of all the ties and things like that.
Is there any common misconceptions about what you guys do?
Yes, I mean one that we only work with women, which is we totally understand. We totally understand that. We have to tell people that almost daily, but a lot of people think that we are like government based, or that we worked with law enforcement, or that we can do anything like that. We're in this unique position that acts as like a middleman between survivors and law enforcement in the judicial system. Because we can offer those things, and we like to break down barriers that like keep survivors from leaving. So we can't necessarily solve, things, but we're going to try to, but we will make it easier to make sure you don't have to go back, and so that you are able to leave, because that's probably the biggest thing, especially around here, is that like these survivors do and want to leave, but like finding anywhere to live in Norfolk, finding a job in Norfolk, very hard. I mean, I should just say even Norfolk specifically, but anywhere, but even just here.
How hard is it to get because I'm assuming a restraining order has to be placed.
Mm-hmm. Well, no. Not for our services.
Not for your services, but for the people that are trying to get out. Isn't that kind of a necessity?
Yes. If like the abuser does not leave them alone, or, things like that, that is commonly what we suggest. And there's different kinds of, there's a harassment order, a domestic violence protection order, and a sexual harassment. protection order, 3 different kinds, and they all have different thresholds of like what law enforcement can do. So not only does it protect them, but it's really hard because law enforcement, the law is pretty gray with civil matters such as like domestic violence. So what we like to say is that like if this is in place, like they can do more. So if they put that order in place, if they call the police, then the police can actually, potentially do an arrest. Whereas like if there's no order in place and they call the police are going to be like, figure it out or somebody needs to leave.
Because the tough thing, let's say the first time the police are called, they kind of have to deduce the situation while they're there and have to kind of take both sides of the story, right? Isn't that kind of how they...
Yeah.
Unless they see like visible...
Yeah, right. Unless there's like a visible who did what, they really have to take what's at face value. And they're not going to do a ton of digging. That's just not what they do.
Right. Why is it so important to make sure that people involved in these situations have a place to go?
Because the financial burden is like easily the biggest part of why survivors don't leave and victims die, because they don't have anywhere to go. A lot of them can't or don't work. They don't have degrees. They aren't allowed to have jobs. They don't have cars. They don't have employment, anything, because a lot of times abusers will isolate them in that way financially and, not having a job and things like that. So that is the biggest thing that I see that's so essential. Say the question one more time. I got on a rant. And
you're good. It was just that I just said, why is it so important to make sure that people involved in these situations have a place to go or a place to speak out at?
Yes. And not even just a place to go physically, like at our shelter or in our homes, but like even people just come in to just like talk to us and be heard. And like, we're not counselors, but sometimes I swear we should be.
Right.
But, and we can provide that, we work with great therapists and things like that. But a lot of times people just want to talk.
Do you guys offer like group meetings, group sessions?
Yep, we have
like
support
that?
groups. Yep, we have a Spanish-speaking support group and an English support group and a children's group every Monday.
Okay.
Happening right now, actually.
Every Monday, huh? That's really good.
Yep, and then we also I do a domestic violence support group at the Well here in Norfolk every Monday, and I enjoy that too.
That's good. At what point should someone speak up?
That's really hard because different people can stand for different things, and a lot of people don't know what abuse is until it's like extremely physical and I'm bleeding and in pain. And that's when I don't want to say it's too late at that point, but it is too late. Like
harder to get out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we don't want to see people hurt. So and almost always is there signs in abuse leading up to when it is, does turn physical. So if you even have like a hunch that like these are happening, he's not letting me have a debit card, he doesn't let me work. I shouldn't say if they don't let me work, if they don't, they're isolating me from my family, I don't get to do things, I don't have a job. Like, I mean, abuse doesn't have to hurt physically. And I think that's really important. So we're all human. Like if you know something's not right, it's probably not right.
When it comes to the statistics of the abuse, is a lot of it more mental, or is most of it physical when they come to you, or how?
I would say we see probably we do see a lot of mental. We do see, when it is really physical, and that's like the hardest things that we see, and the gut wrenching, the tears and things like that. That's really hard. But we do see a lot of mental and financial, probably the most. Probably
financial abuse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Can you explain that to the listeners? I know you kind of a little bit did already, but just so they kind of get the idea.
Just like a brief overview, like a financial abuse is like isolating you like financially. Like you can't there's nothing in your name, there's no credit cards, no debit cards, you aren't allowed to work. And it may not, that's probably the one that people don't perceive as abuse, because for a long, long time, like even still, like some partners, most men handle the money. And, he works and things like that. And that's not always the case in all types of relationships, but commonly. So that's just what they're used to. So a lot of people don't realize it until it gets worse, per se. And a lot of people would say that, well, that's not hurtful. That's just somebody doing something they need to, or just how it is and things like that. But that's usually one of the controlling factors that starts it, because once they have that, like set, this person doesn't have employment, they don't have any money, they have no way to do anything, then like if they then they're controlled. They can't go anywhere, they can't do anything, they're helpless essentially, especially this day and age.
Yeah.
Do you see more singles come in or families?
There's probably a good mix. We see a lot of single survivors, and it's like there is the in between, but it's either like they're on their own or they have like 6 kids, which is totally fine. Nothing wrong with, not having kids or having
so it's
kids.
Like one extreme to the other.
Yeah. I mean, we do have the middle, but like anymore, that's what it seems like. And that's really, it is sad.
Is that a societal issue?
I don't know.
Of not picking right partners? Because you look at it, like I don't, this is a touchy subject. But I have feelings like the world has changed so much that like how do you go through and see something where it's like this is a pattern and this keeps happening with multiple people that you're picking? Why are we doing this? Like what do we need to change here to where we can make this never happen for you
like
again?
A survivor who like
just keeps going to maybe not the same guy, but the same type of, like, you can read the type of people that you're going to.
Yeah, that's really hard to understand.
You're picking the wrong person.
It's hard not to be like,
time.
How do you not know? Like, why would you let this happen again? And that's easy.
That would be the most heartbreaking thing for me. I'd be like, I cannot deal with this because you're going to the wrong people every single time. Like, why are we doing this?
That's the hardest part of our job, especially when we see survivors who have been doing really well and then they do go back to the abuser or they find somebody else. And it really is hard because what I kind of like to think is that like victim or survivors of domestic violence or sexual violence, anything like that, like they have like, once you go through a trauma like that, you have characteristics that instinctively never leave you. And like abusers have a way to almost like sniff that out.
Yeah.
Like
I don't even blame the ones that go back to the same person, mostly because there's obviously a reason you were with them at some point, or that person. There's an emotional connection. That just happens. Everybody
but
goes back. Everybody backslides.
Different. The ones with different.
even of us that aren't in a domestic issue, we've all had exes or whatever that we backslide every once in a while. It's like, it was comfortable. So
yeah,
I get that.
But the ones that go back or not go back, but seem to find
the next person that's the same guy.
And I think a lot of that has to do with like extenuating external factors that survivors and victims of domestic violence and sexual violence fall into, because commonly we see underprivileged areas, people of color and things like that fall just even according to statistics that are more likely to be victim to this. So those factors, whether it be the substance abuse or, they have a criminal record or things like that like already puts them down in society, that like, I'm not attacking you. I'm just wondering I love the question.
If we could come up with a way to teach people.
That would probably be some
teach
of the
new
therapy, right?
Yeah, teach new ways through, like, we can't be doing this anymore. We gotta, like, you're better than that. Figure another way out. Don't stop being a victim. At this point, you were a victim. Now we're getting you to be a survivor. Let's stop being a victim and let's try to.
Right.
You know
and
I know it's hard, and that sounds terrible for me as a guy, and I understood this was going to happen when we had this, when we were going to have you on.
I love the question, and it's hard for me to put into words, but like we wonder the same thing, but we know that like people who fall victim to this like have circumstances that like put them in vulnerable situations going forward. Does that make sense? Like I don't want to say they're more likely to be a victim going forward because they were initially, but even statistics will tell you that if it's happened once, like you're probably more likely.
Is there a lot of substance abuse problems with a lot of these situations?
Unfortunately, there is, just because either that was happening before or that is now happening because and thereafter, especially with Norfolk in this area being so big in drugs, which is unfortunate, but whether it was a coping mechanism or because of that's what they were doing to survive beforehand, they were doing together or with other people, we see a lot of that.
Because that could be a slippery slope with what he's talking about if you're
to go right back to
back and get
a new
drugs
dealer.
or even a new person, and they will give you drugs for whatever for a while and then turn violent.
That abuse addiction issue is tough for us. That's why we work really well with the well. And that's kind of a hurdle we have to navigate. And
they're on my list too, so we'll get them in.
that would be somebody really good to talk to. They're great.
Yeah.
So like when that happens, when you get the single parent with kids that's clearly got a substance abuse issue on top of being the victim of domestic abuse or whatever, how do you guys navigate those waters? Like, we can't just let you take the kids. Like, you've obviously got a substance problem too.
Right. We are mandatory reporters, and we tell all of our clients that, like, when they sign paperwork with us, that, like, you have rights and everything you tell us is confidential. But if we feel that child abuse is present, like, we will call. So we always disclose that and things like that. But when it comes to, like, substance abuse in kids, if substance use is involved and, like, it's actively involved, not like in the past or things like that, if it's actively involved, we almost always work with the well, because they can provide, they're a dual diagnosis, so they can provide much more or work with us together. So that's really good.
And usually if they're coming, they're wanting to get off of the substance too, or do you ever have problems with it? You have to, like, force them, like, you got to clean this up?
I mean, a stipulation to staying in our shelters is not only that it's confidential, but it's safe. And so, like, there is no use of alcohol, drugs, nothing. So if, like, you're caught with that, like, you are not welcome, unfortunately.
Gotcha.
Because that puts other clients at risk.
Does the mandatory reporting keep some people from using your services?
Not that we have heard. Not that we have heard yet. Because a lot of people, when they're bringing forth, like, accusations of abuse, it'll involve the kids, or I'd say probably even more so that, like, it doesn't happen to the kids, but they see it. And a lot of abusers won't hurt their kids. Like, they'll hurt an adult who they feel like is justified. So luckily we have not heard that, and we don't have to involve that very much, knock on wood.
Do you ever see who?
I heard it.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So when you have singles or families living on site due to the emergency, they aren't allowed to go anywhere? Or, like, if you have kids during, like, the school year, how does all that work?
You are allowed to come and go, like, as you please. We're not super strict on that because we want them to live their lives. We want them to go out and do things and things like that. Kids are to go to school, and they're not to be left alone at the house. So they have to have daycare if they go to work. We work with them to get jobs and things like that. So they are free to come and go, but there are obviously, like, confidentiality rules. They don't park near the house and things like that.
Do you ever have any children that come in accusing parents? Even if it's, like, let's say a 22-year-old that comes in and it's a parent situation. Do you have that?
Yeah. And it is commonly those, like, older children, adult children. And that is a kind of a hard situation for us because they're not minors sometimes, not always. But if they are minors, like, we send them to the CAC. Like, we don't step on toes there, and we work. I mean, we're not going to turn anybody away, but we will make sure that that handoff is made and things like that. But we do have a lot, especially with, like, LGBTQ plus survivors. That's pretty heavily with, like, parental issues and things like that. So, I mean, we can house minors, and or I guess I shouldn't say minors, but younger adults. And then we work with specific community resources that will work with youth survivors of trauma. I think the one is called Great Plains. They're really great. That I didn't even know existed. I think it's called Great Plains. They meet with youth survivors once every 2 weeks, and they go over, like, financial planning, life coaching, and things like that. And we can offer that too, but that's specifically what they do for youth. So that's been good too.
So you
we don't see that a lot.
Plethora of different agencies you can.
We try.
So with the adult children, how are those situations handled? Same type of way?
Yeah, I mean, I would say commonly with, like, the youth and younger adult situation, it's like I'm being kicked out, I'm not being treated fairly, and things like that. And you have to take it by case, and things like that. It just kind of depends what was happening beforehand. We see a lot of long standing long-term like sex abuse and they're disclosing at an older age. That's pretty common too. And that gets hard, not only to hear, but to deal with legally and things like that.
That's still going on, or it was an older...
It's
like
a little bit of
younger?
both. Probably most commonly, it's like, this happened to me for years and I want to talk about it now. But there's also some, once in a while that we'll see that this still goes on.
Is that where if that's going on, is that a therapy situation?
Yeah, I mean, we will work with the therapist, but obviously we'll do a protection order if need be. We will help them file a report with law enforcement and help them through that process.
You mentioned the LGBTQ plus survivors. Can you explain some of that, how some of those have gone, what they're coming in for?
Yes, that is another thing that we're really trying to work on. Not that we didn't ever serve them, but we're trying to make resources a little more accessible. Again, not that they ever weren't, but making sure that they feel welcomed and that they are, regardless of what type of relationship they're in, how they identify, whatever it may be, like we will help them regardless. So really just trying to make sure that message is put out there. People in those types of relationships are at a statistically higher rate of domestic and sexual violence. So, we recognize that too, that we need to be reaching out more to these people because they're not coming to us as frequently as, heterosexual people. So that's something we're trying to recognize.
Because you help everybody, all different walks of life.
Yes, anybody and anybody.
So the statistics are higher for the LGBTQ plus community in sexual violence?
Sexual and domestic, yep.
I don't know that this is a fact. I'm fairly certain I've heard this, and I'm fairly certain that it's true, is that the highest rate of domestic violence is in lesbian marriage or lesbian relationships.
That would probably be true, and I'd have to, double check in on that, but I wouldn't be necessarily surprised just because the social dynamic of it's, two women.
Yep.
And, that doesn't happen. And, that's usually a male dominated thing, unfortunately. So they're maybe not as happening as more frequently, but less likely reported and more likely happening than we would think as a society.
For the time frame on the housing, is there a time frame that they can, or is it kind of like until
how
they're
long
back on
we help?
Yeah.
It just kind of depends. With our housing, we work with like HUD programs and rapid rehousing and things like that. And I love and boast about our housing programs. It serves really great. And I know that housing here in Norfolk is really hard to find, and like income and assisted housing is even harder. So we can help up to...
Do you think it's harder to find because people abuse it? Because I feel that way. I feel there's people that abuse it that shouldn't be using it.
I don't know if it's necessarily abused, but it's just so highly utilized, and there's like housing in Norfolk is very scarce. So that does not help either. I think there are a lot of people who utilize it. As far as like abusing goes, I don't know. I'm sure people would say that. But that's...
I'm speaking anecdotally.
Right. No, I get you.
Evidence I've seen of it, but don't know. I just didn't know if you guys felt that way, like when you guys are looking for something that you clearly need for somebody, and you're having a hard time finding it. Like, it's got to be frustrating. You're like, well, I know you don't have to have it, so why are you taking this up for? Where I could be.
And that's kind of why I like that we offer a housing program, because like we can, in a way, fast track it, and we can help them through it, because part of the hard process is that like there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of red tape, there's a lot of things like that, and people can't navigate that on their own. And with ours, there's not as much. We do have stricter requirements. Like, we work with them through our programming, and we help them through certain requirements and eligibility and things like that. But it's all part of like essentially like a recovery plan.
Yeah.
Like, we're helping you out with this.
You have to give a little bit. If we're going to give you this, you have to give us.
We're trying to help you get better, and we're gonna work together to do things to make you and help you get better.
Yep. I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. What are some of the, you had spoke about some statistics. Is there some statistics that you would like to bring up, talk about, speak about? Anything specific?
I mean, we touched on a lot, and I was going to hit on that LGBTQ plus couples are more likely to be victim. Off the top of my head, I can't think of the correct thing. But like specific statistics, I've had.
But we don't need specific statistics. But like obviously we kind of know that it's
In
more
general,
of in general, general. Just
we're not going to fact check you on anything.
oh yeah, we fact check all the time.
Fact check themselves.
I'm just kidding.
If you think you know,
I mean, something that would probably be surprising is that we serve 10 counties, like across Ainsworth, O'Neill, and here in Norfolk. And like the highest rate of like the county that has the highest domestic violence rate, like what, take a guess.
Out of those?
I mean, that's like Rock, Keapaha, Holt, Antelope, Knox, Madison, Stanton, Pierce.
I would probably say Madison.
What do you think?
We're talking per capita or
just
total
within the
cases?
county.
Total cases.
Total cases in the county, like per year, because we do like yearly stats.
I would Holt or Madison.
It is Pierce.
Oh, really?
Yeah, one of our smallest.
That's even actual cases, not per capita.
Our
That's
numbers.
crazy.
Those cases. Interesting. Any idea why?
I think it's just because those communities are very small and very connected. And so, especially with times being harder financially, that's been kind of really hard on small communities too. So the stress is very high.
That's the other thing I was going to ask you. So you've been there for how long?
It'll be a year later this year, so probably like 8-9 months.
Have you heard any stories about how COVID went through that?
COVID was extremely, extremely hard. Not even just in like our office and how they did things, but like the statistics before and after COVID and during COVID for domestic violence and sexual assault were like insane. Like
people were trapped together.
Yeah, people were staying home and they couldn't leave and had even if they wanted to leave, like there's no place to go because of like restrictions and quarantine and things like that. So, and we're still kind of feeling the shock of COVID, even like 2 years later. So it's been, I always say that I almost wish that I was working here during then, but I know it would have been just crazy.
Was it worse on the domestic violence side of partners or was it worse on the kids?
When I asked them, it was more so on probably from what I've heard, like my coworkers talk about who worked there during that time, is that it was like partners still. Kids were witnessing it more. So you could say, that too, but I mean, not only were they trapped together, but like finances were tough. So
still kind of are.
Yes, still are very much.
What are some of the stats that people that don't speak up? Like, is there a stat for that? Obviously, it's hard to.
There is the number. I was literally going to look that up before I got here. It's been a crazy day.
It's hard to prove a negative.
That's what I mean. That's why I didn't know if there was a way to.
Like the percentage that go unreported is like probably like 40-ish%, 30 to 40% go unresolved. And that's different in different regions and things like that. But that's probably close. But that's probably a 30 to 40%. And as far as like numbers, probably, and I think within our region, it's probably like 10,000 a year don't go. And that's like a rough guess.
Do you think that there are more men out there that are maybe getting more mentally abused that would probably never, ever, ever, even remotely ever say anything?
Yeah. I mean, the handful of male survivors that we work with, like every time they come in, they say like, I was never going to say anything. Like, I know people who have been through this, then they want to do it, but they never will.
And it's generally never physical, right? It's more of or sometimes maybe get to that, but they don't take it as physical, maybe?
That I would say, like in the handful, even that I have seen in my time, like it is physical, but not as like.
They're not getting beaten, battered. They're getting a little
it's
bit.
like it's like random acts of. I mean, it's almost like more methodical. Like I've heard that like. Some pretty crazy things.
Like poisonings and stuff like that?
Yeah. No, that's pretty close.
That's the
yeah. Well, I mean,
the female choice of
usually if they're going to murder their husband, that's how.
So. Yeah. I mean, without that physical aspect, I don't want to say you have to be smarter, but
yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Is there quite a few of those cases like that?
With like poisoning?
No,
just like men in general.
Men in general.
I mean, there is more than we're seeing.
I bet it's more than people. I wouldn't imagine there's very many because you never hear about it of people going to places like you, which is surprising to hear you say.
That's why I wondered if that statistic would be higher if You know what I mean? The not speaking up.
Yeah, and I think it mostly when we see male victims, like it's because they don't think they should leave because like they provide, they have children involved. It's not that bad. I can deal with it, you know, and they have that higher threshold for rather than like female survivors and things like that. But that's, I would say like sometimes females can be more methodical, like I was saying, or psychological and things like that. And then they can use that tactic. Like you need to stay, you provide, you need to be more of a man, you know, whatever that may stereotypical threat
use
may
the
be.
kids as a bartering chip
And then they know that custody doesn't always work out in males' favor. So that I know just societally keeps them from speaking out too, but they just have that higher threshold for what they'll put up
tolerate.
with. Yeah.
We kind of touched on some of this already, but what are some of the main reasons someone does not speak up?
Because they won't be believed because of, I think most commonly because of like connections. Like we've been together for 10, 20 years, and he knows the chief of police, they're best friends, and he's a businessman. I shouldn't say they're a businessman, you know, whoever it may be, they have connections, and like nobody would believe me. Or the other one would be that they couldn't do it on their own. So it was easier to survive in that environment and like have a roof over their head and provide for their children than like have that independence and be free and having to figure it out on their own, because that's hard.
I think I figured out how to ask my question. I'm going to ask it very carefully.
Okay.
With these high-profile cases
Yes.
that are in the news where it's a false case, do you think that some of that being proven false has made it so some people don't come forward?
Like out of like being scared of that. That's what they maybe perceived.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I know even from my own experience and things like that, like I just didn't speak up or say anything because I feel like I didn't have any evidence, any like grounds, any credibility. So, and I just was like, it's just not that. It is what it is, you know, I'll get over it. But like looking back at it now, I wish I probably would have. But as far as like high profile cases, the Me Too movement and things like that.
I can give you an example. So there was a baseball player that somebody predatorily went after him, and for that reason, and then came out and said that he sexually assaulted her, and they found the text message, and they found out that she was going after his money. Situations like that.
Yes.
Do you think that those high profile cases make it harder for people to maybe want to come out and say something?
Yes.
I hope I asked that all right.
No, you did. And I'm trying to think
I wasn't going to bring up high profile cases, but I was going to ask close to the same question.
I think so. I think those few instances of where they are unfounded, considered false, whatever that may be, has really put a sort of like cloud on survivors. Like, I'm not saying that does not happen, but it's, I believe, such a small scale compared to like what's not reported and things like that. But I do think that has really changed the narrative. So especially people who, you know, maybe not high profile in the world, but they're high profile in their community. So they're like, if I leave, like they're just going to think that he has money now and I'm trying to leave. Or he's going to be this higher up and I just want my own, like that definitely put that thought in people's minds.
I'll tell you right now that the Me Too and the Believe All Women movement has done more damage, in my view, of survivors than anything could have ever done. Because there's so much out there it was so unfounded. There's so much that came to be proven completely false that it has damaged the people that really actually need the help. And it makes me feel bad because it's a precondition that I can't get rid of. Like it's in my brain.
A predisposition.
My predisposition's already there, and it drives me crazy. And it's only because of those two movements.
Right. And I mean, we hear that a lot. Our mission statement is that everybody who comes in like and has a story for us, we believe them because we're not like judge and jury. We're not law enforcement. We're not here.
Because you're a stopgap, basically.
Yeah,
we'll
like
get you to this point, and then you prove your point. From
yes, and then law enforcement can prove otherwise. Like we
Okay.
will,
Yeah.
we will believe you, and that's again our unique position that we're allowed to, or not allowed to, but we have this opportunity to believe everybody because we're not judge and jury. We're not making decisions for anybody else or things like that. So.
Which is completely understandable, and it's fine to take that position as long as you're not wrecking somebody's life over it. Where you're only doing it for you're like you said, we're going to get you from here to here, and then everything else is going to get taken care of on the backside.
Right. And I think that those instances of like the completely false reports, they were large in like the news and in media and things like that. And I think not necessarily blown out of proportion because I understand that that's not okay, and we don't think that's okay either. But I think it really potentially clouded like that is a problem, yes, but like the bigger problem is that like this is happening and we don't know, and like people are not coming out. So like rather than focusing on the handful of potentially false or unfounded claims, rather than the cases people still can't come forward because people are dying and things like that. And then I guess sort of on the flip side of that, a lot of times, even like around here, like lately for some reason, we'll see a lot of survivors who lose their children because of domestic violence, who are arrested because of assault by mutual consent, and things like that. So there are survivors, commonly women, who are facing consequences because of lack of understanding or the situational issues. So there's flaws everywhere, and like I do understand that those happen and that can ruin somebody's life and reputation, but we try to focus on not
right. You try to focus on the helping side, which was what we were saying. So maybe I like that.
I just feel like it's done a disservice to what you're trying to provide.
That's
like
right,
that's where
no, right,
I'm asking, like, if you've seen it much harder to like I don't know how to explain what I'm saying. I just think it's done a disservice to the people that really need the help.
Right.
Overall,
it's hard, like even for us, like obviously we believe everybody, but like it's almost put in like the back of our brains, like, is this really happening? Should we dig a little more? And we don't need to, but it's hard not to instinctually do that. Just out of human nature and instinct and things like that, because those things have happened. But I mean, we're in such a small community that
that's kind of what we were getting at, is if even if in your guys' brains, if it was kind of hurting some of this, the situation.
Yeah. The subconscious, it's like something we confront and something we don't do, but that's why we don't need to investigate. We don't question. We help people get where they need to be, and then judge and jury can decide.
Sound good?
If that were to come up, do you, I don't know if I want to ask this. If it were to come out that something wasn't being done, do they lose all your services at like that time, or would you kind of help them through maybe getting, or how would that work?
Like if
I know it probably doesn't happen a whole lot, but
like if we found out that like it was a false report.
Yeah.
We haven't run into that yet. But I mean, we have people who like will come in and say that they were in a situation because they're a person without a home, they're homeless, they're substance abuse, things like that, and they just need somewhere to stay, which we understand. Nobody wants to be in that position. But we help people who we can, but there's like, in our work, like we have come to realize like what to recognize is truly happening and things like that, and it's pretty obvious. Like we do have like a conversation with them, and it's not interrogation, it's just questioning, and pretty quickly
usually people give you what you need to hear from them.
But we see homelessness a lot.
I'm sure,
and that's really,
it's starting to become kind of a bigger thing around here.
And we don't have a lot of resources for that, which is even more difficult on those who do. So we help people even like not in our area. Like we have gotten some from out of state, from Omaha, from everywhere.
How does that work then for that?
we work with agencies in different places that will work with us to transport, like Center for Survivors in Columbus. We work a lot with them, like handoffs and things like that, meeting them halfway. But transportation is mainly, there's a lot of like advocacy centers everywhere, sort of. So like we're all kind of within the understanding that like we have to work together to get people places. So
how does it, now that you brought that up from other places, how does it work with non-citizens?
We work with anybody regardless of
No matter what
immigration status. Yep. Okay. And that's probably...
Does that count as you have to tell? Or that doesn't count?
You have to tell what?
Like you said, you report everything. Do you report that? That
Like,
they're a non-citizen? Mm-hmm. You do report that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That is like part of our stats.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, obviously we're not like reporting them to like any government agency. Like
that's what I mean. Are you reporting them to a government agency because they're illegals?
No. That's part of their rights to a client, as I said, they're confidential.
Do you have any specific situations, I know we talked about this before the podcast, that you would like to speak on that have happened that you can talk about in any type of way?
Yeah, I mean, I just had a respect for my clients and my job, like confidentiality comes first, but just some of the things that I've seen, like I've seen, a young girl come in just with like a huge, like left side of her face, and she was just like the sweetest person like you've ever met. She's just sitting here and she's like, I don't want anything from him. I just don't want him to ever talk to me again. And she's got a diaper bag with her and it's covered in blood and it's just insane. And she's just so calm and just this young girl, beautiful girl. And it just like breaks your heart. Like on, the other side of it, I have seen like some of this, like the just evil things that people do, like bringing people from out of the country here and then abusing them and then not letting them go, trafficking essentially in itself, dumping people like out just anywhere. And then they have nowhere to go. On like the positive side of it, like we've seen some really great things. People who have went on to work in legislation, and people who work in policy, and who go into law enforcement, who do go into things like that. And then I got the opportunity. We have like such an awesome like community of people who will donate things to us. Like I think we've been donated 2 cars now, and we had one most recently couple months ago, and I got to give it to like the client that we had all considered a client to get it, and the client that I had proposed was the one who got it, and she like changed her life. So there's really, really good things, and then there's crazy, crazy bad things like the trafficking stuff. The couple instances that we have worked with are pretty intense, and I've seen anything from like people being injected with veterinary medication to like poisoning, and we see a lot of mental health too, so that's really hard.
Are you talking like tranquilizer type? Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the dumping, are they just dumping them in the city somewhere, or are we talking like out in the country?
No, like in the city. Like sometimes it'll be at the rescue mission, it'll be at the well, it'll be
Gotcha.
Salvation Army. Like they'll just, or even just really anywhere. I'm trying to think of more instances that are pretty crazy. Like if you ask me like in an hour when I'm done here, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah.
Yeah, we'll get done with the episode. And like, oh, I can tell you this story.
And I just like we're working on finding survivors who are comfortable sharing their stories, and like that's because I think that's probably most effective is like hearing it straight from them. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm a survivor myself, but like my story isn't super traumatic like some people's are. Like I've had people had their pets killed in front of them, and that's pretty common. And now pets can be on protection orders because of it. So that's kind of crazy, but very cool. And the law's keeping up with that, which is nice. Wow. So, and I guess this is kind of a total side note, but I meant to put it in anyway. Like the custody thing. Custody is something we get asked about frequently. So like if we work with anybody and they have kids in common, like a protection order will not create a custody plan.
Okay. So the kids, they can still see the kids.
Yes, they still have
is
the
what
legal
you're
right.
saying. Okay. That's interesting.
We'll have a lot of people come in and be like, I don't want my ex to see my kids. He's bad to me. We're broken up. He's using substance, whatever it may be. And they're like, he just can't see him. They shouldn't say he, shouldn't be allowed to see them. Because we see this on both sides of the coin. People trying to use a protection order to keep their kids from their parent. And that it just doesn't work that way. Like judges will see that and they'll be like, nope.
That's the other side that like the law's got to take care of that side of it.
Yeah, yeah. Like
because like what you were saying, a lot of times the abuser doesn't really attack the kid. It happens, but you said that a lot of times you see it. It's only the partner.
Yeah, and even if it's like there's no abuse present at all, but they're having like a really bad breakup, really bad divorce, whatever it may be, like they think that if they put a protection order, that they can't take the kids, like because legally bound they can't. But judges are very particular about children.
Okay.
And they know that's kind of like a loophole people have been trying to use.
They use them as pawns.
Yeah,
it's a bad way to say that, but people do.
They use that.
True.
They use that order as like they think it's like a quick way to solve their custody, like, to keep them from whoever, for whatever reason it may be.
And that's not the case. Yeah.
No, judges are very picky with children.
Do you? We haven't really touched on this yet. Is there a lot of suicide involved with any of these situations?
We haven't seen a lot of it, luckily, but I could totally understand that there would be. But I think a lot of survivors, whoever they may be, male, female, whatever, they have a very like compassionate and almost like vulnerable demeanor, so they know that they can't leave that way either. Because like if they stay, they're staying commonly for a reason, whether or not they want to. Like there's something keeping them, so they just wouldn't. I just don't think they would. So we don't see that as much, which one would think that would drive somebody to that point.
Do you think those are maybe happening and they're just not in the cases that we've seen?
Probably, because that's probably a larger portion of that, not speaking up and things like that. But that's just hard to know. I think mental health plays obviously a really big role into that.
In the 10 counties, has there been any very, very tragic situations where they were maybe seeking help and then?
Yeah, I mean, within the past 5 to 7 years, there was 2 women killed here in Norfolk.
One literally here in Norfolk.
Yeah.
There's 2.
I'm thinking I know of one. That's all. I don't. That's the only reason.
And
and they reached out to Bright Horizons or not?
I believe so. Obviously, I'm not totally sure.
Mm-hmm. I know the one for sure had a restraining order.
Yes, they both did. Now that I think
they?
about it, yep, both did have a restraining order, and that's the hard part. Is that we want people to get restraining orders and things like that, but ultimately,
it's just a piece of paper.
Yeah. But it, like I said again, it allows police to do something more.
Gotcha.
And there'll be instances when somebody comes in to talk to us and we have to decide if a restraining order is truly worth it. Is this going to aggravate an abuser more? Is this going to put you more in danger? And there's situations where we tell them not to. I mean, obviously it is their choice and we will file no matter what. But it's still in our best interest to keep their safety in the forefront, prioritize that. So there are instances where we're we don't think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's situations where we need to do more for protection in those types of ways? Where maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I wish there was more the law could do. But that's
not the law. I'm saying maybe you guys put them in a different city,
Yeah, and we will do that. Yes,
in
in those situations we will. Yeah,
but they got to be willing to do that,
right?
Yes, because it's hard to just completely uproot and go somewhere. Yeah. But we absolutely. That's it's nice that we have 3 offices across, halfway across the state, so that they can go and we'll transport them.
Confidentially, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then they can, stay there and get a distance away. But we also work with like I was saying before, people out of state. We will work with other agencies. There's Haven House in Wayne. There's Center for Survivors in Columbus. We work very closely with them and we determine safety. That's probably our first thought is that if this is an immediately high risk, dangerous situation, or like, are they shelter? Yes, but should it be here?
Right.
Like, that's always our first thought.
Are we talking about cell phones? Are we talking about any kind of electronic devices with them?
Yep. We have, that's part of our safety planning process. We go through and make sure that their phones are not being monitored. But it's almost like commonly lately, like the phones get taken. So that's kind of a side note, but that's
by the
broken or taken. That's probably over 50%. But if they do have it, like we just help them search through it. We help them, and like being in our shelter, like you cannot contact them at all. Like nobody can know, even family cannot know where you're at. I mean, you can tell them that you're in a safe shelter and you can communicate with them, but like address wise, nobody can know.
So we're turning locations off.
Yep.
How can you monitor that they're not?
We can't, and it's kind of the honor system, but it's almost always a dead giveaway. If they're not, they'll have somebody
will show up.
And it's not always an abuser. Sometimes it's like a family member, or it's this, and it's like, okay, well,
you're telling people
you broke confidentiality.
Yep. Have you had any situations, or that you know of, where an abuser has shown up at a? What are the protocols for that?
We have a panic button in all of our rooms in the shelter. The shelter is heavily locked and coded. We have security cameras that are 24/7. We have panic buttons in all our offices as well.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's good to hear.
It used to be, the shelter used to be manned and staffed all like 24/7. I'm not sure when we moved away from that. I think it was quite some time ago, but at one point it was manned 24/7 because there's an office in the shelter.
Like with security and everything? Or just somebody
staff.
there?
Just a staff.
I'm kind of coming to the end of...
Are you guys... what's your percentage on your staff? Are you mostly female? Are you male and female?
Right now we're all female. I'm not sure when they've ever had a male, or otherwise, but I think that's, I don't know, because Center for Survivors has male staff, and things like that. So, and I think Haven House and Wayne does as well. And we just have a very small office, like we're only like 5 people. So
well, I'm talking like the 3 Bright Horizons.
Yep. And
so you're all female in all 3.
Mm-hmm. And the other offices are like even smaller in staff. Like O'Neill only has 2 to 3. And same with Ainsworth. We're the most highly numbered staff.
Gotcha.
But I think it's, and there's survivors, of, any gender, race, whatever that may be. But I think, and all of our staff have a story or are survivors. So that's not necessarily why, but that's a big reason why, is because like women naturally have that nurturing caregiver thing. And a lot of us are educators. A lot of us are former law enforcement, are social workers, things like that. So it's that helping career, sort of like maternal gravity sort of thing. I would love to see a male staff, and I think that's something we've talked about. And that's not something we would ever turn against. Just I don't know if they've had the interest yet.
What did you, now that you brought up kind of that situation, what are your thoughts on when they were trying to maybe push for social workers to go to calls for domestic violence instead of the police?
I think that's a really good question. I think that when they are a domestic call, I think it should be more of a team, because I don't think that police or law enforcement of any kind should have to understand that dynamic. I mean, they should to a point, but that takes that's our whole job. So that's all we do, and that's a lot. So having that on top of what they do every day, I think it's a lot to expect from them. And we are trained to, diffuse situations and things like that. And they are as well, but it's just the dynamics are so different. And I think that's asking a lot of our law enforcement. So I wish that it was more so of a team effort, because it's a lot, and I understand that.
But definitely not sending it just to social work.
I wouldn't say by themselves, no. But when we are on call, I mean, sometimes we'll get called on scene. Like I've been called on scene by NPD, and there was a law enforcement there. They left shortly thereafter, which kind of scared me a little bit, but I trusted that, things were taken care of and that they assumed safe. So that was my first time on call. I was only here for like 2 months and got called onto the scene, which we hardly ever do. We hardly ever get called on scene, but I'm kind of like, I kind of love that adrenaline. And
what kind of situation would it be for them to call you guys?
It's usually domestic.
I just meant like how.
Sorry, I meant to
they
word that
obviously
differently.
wait until it's safe at that point for you to work it out,
yes.
right?
I worded that wrong. Of course, it's always domestic or sexual violence, but I mean more so that like
you're going to a lot of murder scenes.
Well, the one that I did go to was attempted murder. I will say that.
There you go.
But I think, or it's because like it's just like a officer by officer type of like dynamic, what they choose to offer the victim. Like, do you need additional services? Can we call somebody for you? And a lot of times they'll say no, and the occasional yes. And then the officer has the discretion to either give them a card, give us a call. It's just really like at their own discretion, their will. We don't get called out very commonly. Like I was like the first time in like years.
I do know they get called out quite a bit for domestic violence calls.
Oh yeah, if you check the Madison roster, like we check it every day. There's domestic violence.
And usually, isn't it mostly neighbors calling it in, too?
Neighbors and kids. See a lot of kids.
Gotcha. Do you think some of those are
real or just a normal argument
when it's somebody else calling in like that?
I don't know, because I know that like when it's neighbors, if they don't know the people personally, and like a lot of neighborhoods in Norfolk, you don't really know your neighbors. You just keep to yourself, you do whatever. But if it's loud and things like that, with all the other factors, substance abuse, mental health, homelessness, things like that, like there's so many factors that it could be that like if they don't know their neighbors super well, it probably is, maybe not something habitual, but like they'd rather err on the caution that what the heck is happening, but it's hard to say like what degree is it, and like, do you call, do you not?
Right. And this may be more of a well thing, but let's say it is substance abuse. Let's say it's not a partner situation, but it's dealer to, we kind of talked about this earlier, but dealer to buyer, whatever you want to call it. Do you guys help in those situations? Like, or is that more you?
No, like and like domestic violence doesn't have to be like partners. It can be family. It can be neighbors. It can be anything.
It could be Vance and I.
Really?
Hey,
is there something I should know?
Buddy. Well, not in that sense.
Yeah. She said it didn't have to be partners. That's what she was saying.
I think that's more of an assault by mutual combat right there. Mutual consent.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it was good.
So in that situation, you guys do help in that situation?
Yep.
Okay.
And like even if it's not domestic violence, it's just kind of like violence in general. Like we will get people where they need to go. Like we're not like, oh, there's no domestic violence, we can't help you.
Right.
Like
obviously you said you'd help if you have.
We kind of talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
You don't turn people up full stop.
Like if there's somebody who has a neighbor that won't leave them alone, who constantly harasses them, like we'll help them do a harassment order. Like there's no like, it takes like 10 minutes for us at this point. So like we're not just going to be like, we have no like jurisdictions per se.
We haven't talked too much. We talked a little bit about it, but do you see more sexual assault or more domestic violence cases, or kind of one and the same?
In this area, lately, domestic violence.
Domestic violence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there in the 10 counties we talked about how many cases? Is there certain counties that have a higher sexual assault rate, or certain areas?
That I don't know. I'd probably say that the smaller counties, like probably Pierce, is probably up there with sexual assault.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I might be reiterating some questions, but I'm trying to make sure we get through everything. We've been talking for a long time, and I feel like we maybe didn't touch on some things, but I could be wrong.
Touch on everything. I have nowhere to be.
Any other situations you want to go into that you can talk about? I know you talked about a few.
I really like my main thing was talking about the like misconceptions of human trafficking and things like that. And I'm glad we talked about, the Me Too movement and that changing things. But I think, the thing that really hit me is like when I first moved back here and I had first like got a month into my job. I was getting my like hair done by like somebody downtown. And she was like, "Oh, you work at Bright Horizons. Like you work with people with disabilities." And I was like, "Nope, we don't do that." But it didn't surprise me because I was like, people really.
So they don't really know what you guys
Were they
offer.
thinking of like Mosaic? Or were they
Right, like Mosaic,
Must have.
ILC, and Liberty Center, things like
See,
that.
I've always thought of where he was on the Bright Horizons side. I thought it was a women's advocacy group only. Like that's the way I always believed it was.
That's another misconception is that we mainly serve female survivors, but we will help anybody. And I've seen, even just in mine, like 9 months, full of men.
For people to donate stuff, we're just like you have that on your website, or how do people
Yep,
donate?
you can just bring it into our office. We're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 4.
Where's
do
it
you?
located?
Oh, go ahead.
Where's that located?
601 East Norfolk Avenue.
Okay.
Otherwise,
do you?
go ahead.
Go ahead. Do you ever have to turn people away? Because I know like Salvation Army had a bunch of stuff at one point. And they got so we can't keep taking these donations because there's no need for that. Like we can't store it first off.
Yes,
and, like,
we have that problem a lot, especially with
Okay.
like clothing. Like, because we have very limited storage in our, our little building. So if we can't give it to somebody else, like very rarely do we have to turn it away. We'll just like, sometimes we'll just accept it and give it to like Orphan Grain Train.
Gotcha. Do you prefer people to call you first if like they say, "Hey, we got a bunch of this"?
Yeah, it
Would
is
you
really
be
nice
interested
when they
in
do.
this?
That is really nice.
Do you guys do like a wish list type thing? Like
Yeah,
people-
yeah. I put it on
and
our
then
socials
people
sometimes.
can just bring what you need.
Yep.
I guess.
That'd be cool to like put on your website to like keep a recurring thing like this. These are what we need.
Yes, and we do. We try to, and like I do. Me and another advocate do all of our socials, so we try to commonly keep that updated, and that is on our website.
And your socials are all Bright Horizons, or what are your socials?
Yep.
Just everything at Bright Horizons.
Yep, Bright Horizons are Bright Horizons NE.
Okay.
But yeah, I just that was something that really like caught me off guard, but like really like put a fire under my butt. That was like, this is the job that I took accidentally, and so like I need to get out everywhere and tell people like what we actually are, because we've been in Norfolk for a long time, and I think we've been kind of disconnected. People kind of forgot. We've always been utilized. It's just like if you're not utilizing us, you're like, who is that? What are they doing?
Right.
So that's why I'm here.
You take cash donations, right?
Oh yeah. Please.
Just had to ask. Do you prefer cash donations?
I mean, like cash
get-
monetary gift cards is really great for like gas for clients, for groceries and things like that. That's always that.
Do you
does
give
help.
people receipts if they can use it for tax write-offs and stuff like that, or not?
like for our
The
clients?
donator.
Like if the donator,
yes,
if
yes.
somebody's going to donate you
Yes.
money,
Yep,
a
we have
monetary
official
value.
receipts.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you have a normal line outside of the emergency line?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Do you have that number?
Yep. 402-379-2026.
I just want to make sure we put all these on the post too, and have it on the podcast and all this stuff. Do you know what's the emergency number?
Oh, off the top of my head.
We can look it up. Cole, can you look that
It's
up?
some like off the wall, like
That's
879.
okay.
It's 879 something. 379, I think.
Other than that, that's really all I had prepared, and I made a bunch of questions while we were talking.
Mm-hmm. Got nothing else?
Anything? No.
No hard ones?
Well, I kind of gave you the ones that I didn't want to get too crazy. Hard ones.
Did you have any assumptions?
The only assumption was that I thought it was
Women's only.
Women's only.
And that's a common assumption.
And then obviously I wanted to kind of get into the Me Too stuff and talk about that. Vance, you got any other?
I asked my hard ones. Good. I touched on my difficult ones.
Yeah. Do you?
So everybody can attack me for being a misogynist. So
What
I'm
is
fine with
the
it.
hardest?
No.
What's the hardest part for you in your job? Like what is either whether it's
that's a good one.
dealing with certain clients or hearing the stories and having to mentally go through that yourself?
I mean, the secondhand trauma is really tough, but I'm somebody who's been through a lot, like in my life, so that doesn't really bother me, and that's something that really like fulfills me and keeps me going. But I think the hardest part is we talked about it a little bit, like seeing survivors and clients go back. Like that's really hard.
Yeah.
That's probably the hardest. It's both like saddening and frustrating, but statistically, the common survivor will go back 7 times before they're done.
Okay. Actually, since we just talked about this, I want to go back into it one more time. What's more common? They go to the same person or they go to the same type of person?
Same person.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right.
7 times.
That's 7 times, huh?
At least.
After seeing you or before, like it could be 6.
Just in
and
general.
you're the 7th.
I think just in general, whether there's intervention or not.
'Cause
I would hope
like
with our intervention it would be less, but I think...
I look at it with what you guys, and this is just conjecture, obviously, but when I look at you guys, what you guys offer, if somebody is reaching out to you guys personally, they have made a decision to change something at that point. So I look at it as like, I would hope that the percentage of people going back after you guys is much lower than the normal person leaving and going back.
Yeah.
Is that right? Do you
I would hope
think that's true? Or
I mean,
is
I
there
would
any
hope-
numbers that way?
that's a number I'd really love to look into, but like
It's hard to prove again because it's a negative, so you know can't prove it.
And like, do we want to keep track of like people's records? Like, we don't judge people for going back. Like, we never are like, if somebody works with us and goes to the abuser and then comes back, we're never like,
But
nope.
you guys, no, I'm not talking about that person. Do you guys keep track of that yourselves? Like
No.
not for per person, but be like, hey, we had a client, got him this far, went back to the abuser. Like just a number, no tracking anybody, because it'd be like you said, it already goes in your mind because you already know,
Right.
If that person comes back, it's
that's
already
pretty
in the back
much it.
of
It's
your
like a
mind.
mental tally that we remember, and like, oh, we know this person has went back,
Yeah.
and like, we don't not address it. I would say like we take
You
it.
bring it up to them.
I mean, not necessarily like a confrontational, like you need to not do this, but like, what can we do? What is happening from keeping you from going?
Gotcha.
So it's not something we don't talk about, and it's something we definitely do. Like everybody I've ever worked with, like I remember them, like remember their name, their faces, their stories. Like it's just not something you forget.
But it is brought up to them, not in a confrontational way, but at least to put it in their mind, like,
Yeah, because
we know this.
we do believe everybody, but like we still want them to get better, and like part of that recovery healing process is like calling out faults, calling out issues, calling out struggles. So I mean, that is a struggle, and like we'll tell them, we know that it's likely that people go back. So like, what can we do to make sure you don't?
Gotcha.
And my thing with what you said is, have they made that decision, or did it just get that bad that they had to come see you guys?
That's it. Like, is it a final decision, or was it like a last straw for now? So that's a lot. I mean, a lot of it could be circumstantial. Like after the holidays are silent for us, but that week after holidays, insane. So like timing and like end of the month, beginning of the month, dynamics are different. So
Can I interrupt here?
Yeah, go ahead.
The emergency phone number is 877-379-3798. Or you can text 24 hours at 402-370-8817.
Thanks, Cole.
thanks, Cole.
I don't remember.
Okay.
We were talking about like
Oh,
going back
end
and
of
month, beginning of the month.
I'm more looking on the holiday side of it. Obviously, holidays are I love family, but family only lasts for so long. It's too much. So is it ever like some of that stuff at the end of holiday stuff? It's like, this is just a high stress situation. Maybe somebody's blowing something out of whether it's true or not. Like we had an argument and it got misconstrued as something.
Like is this just like a boiling point?
Yeah.
And that this boiled over. Yeah. And I think that was a lot of COVID as well, is that like it just got to a boiling point. And like you were saying, like, is it a final decision, or was it a choice, or was it their final decision, or was it a decision because of the heated moment, that we don't, I mean, as we talk to them and we tell their stories, we help them navigate their stories and understand, and like we get background and information on things like that. So it's not just like they tell us their whole spiel and then we're like, okay, so we help navigate and things like that. And then we can kind of get a gist of like how they are acting and like how they're speaking, like if this is what they want, or they're like, I don't know what I want. it seems to be getting bad and things like that. So we navigate that. But I do think that the holidays, the added stress, and then the added stress of the end of the month, beginning of the month, like that definitely.
That's probably a money thing.
Yeah, that money panic is what we kind of talk about. Is
and then
that
with the holidays, a lot of times it's probably they're wanting to, celebrate for the holidays and be good with each other. So they probably try harder to.
We got through this. It was great. Now I can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. What is the highest time of year you guys have?
Summer.
Summer?
Yeah, probably.
Why is that?
Actually, I'd say summer and like the end of the year.
That's the holiday thing, probably?
Probably the holiday thing. But then summer is because like people are not working as much. The weather contributes a lot, strangely. Kids at home.
See, I look at it the other way. I would figure that I go through seasonal depression. 100%.
Yep.
So summer, I'm the happiest I can ever be in the summer. Like the sun, getting on the sun. I love the sun. The sun, I think, is the greatest medicine ever to man. But
Agreed.
like it's crazy. Like I hate wintertime. Like wintertime, I'm depressed-ish. Like no, I'm not depressed, but like my mood is
Depressive
definitely
state.
definitely depressive.
We'll go with depressive state. Yeah.
compared to summer. So I would have thought winter would be worse than summer.
A lot of people would, but like even not just for us, but like statistically, like summer and hot months are the worst. I think it's because I'm trying to think of what I read.
You spend more hours together, maybe? Well, no, because in wintertime you're in the house because it's dark out. This is one that's confused. This stat is the weirdest one to me.
The summer one, I think, because everybody's at home together.
And like,
I could see
and
that.
like crime in general is higher in the summer, so that also contributes.
Which people get out of the house.
Yeah.
But domestic violence is more of an in-house crime.
Yeah, I mean they go pretty hand in hand. Is that like there's usually other crime present when there's domestic violence, like of any kind.
Oh, really?
Especially in those like low population or low socioeconomic areas,
like outside of substance abuse. You're talking like there's a crime associated with.
Yeah, I mean like whether it be gang violence, whether it be money. I mean, really anything. Like there's commonly something else.
Gotcha.
As far as like the stats on that, I don't know, but that's mainly like in those high crime areas too, and that's where that is the worst because that's when crime is high.
I don't think we touched on this. What are the age ranges? Like, is there like a median age that you get in there, or is it more older people? Is it more?
Median age range probably like 30s, but
30s.
I've worked with an 11-year-old and I've worked with a 76-year-old, so it's really like all over the place. And both of those, like the 11-year-old and the 76-year-old, like some of the best clients. Unfortunate stories, but best clients.
Right. Yeah, we can't even ask questions about it. That's been the tough thing for me to come up with questions for this because we can't
I know and
speak in
believe me
in specifics.
I wish I could.
If you ever do end up having a couple people that maybe wouldn't mind telling their stories, we wouldn't mind.
Oh, I know one right now who would talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to get a hold of her. She really would.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely put that on the list. As far as the Bright Horizon stuff, I don't think I have anymore. I think I kind of got through everything that I wanted to get out anyway. Is there anything else you wanted to get out to the people?
No, I mean, like I said, like all of us do what we do because we have a story. I fell into this job accidentally, but I kind of, in a way, know. Like I'm a big believer in like fate and things like that. Mm-hmm. So I really think like everybody will tell you or tell me that like this was a job I was meant for, not because like I enjoy it and I feel like I'm good at it, but because of my story and the people I work with are incredible. The backgrounds we come from and just the things that we can do while like, because we're a nonprofit, they can be limited. Like we will do as much as we can within those limits.
Well, I can tell you can speak pretty well about it off the cuff. So
I try.
I would say you're probably in the spot. Where
That's
you need
why.
to be.
That's why I'm the education and outreach coordinator.
There you go.
I do all the speaking.
Now we do have some questions that we ask every single person that comes on the podcast.
Okay.
I'm sure I don't know if you've listened to any of our podcasts, but
a little bit.
So you kind of already maybe know what some of these are. But with it being an election year, how do you feel about where the state of our country is right now? And do you feel that we are being well represented at the federal and state levels? Hard hitting questions on touching base right here.
Well, I'm on the clock, so no, I'm just kidding. But I don't know. I think that the dynamic that has changed in the political climate just within the last 30 days is insane. And I am a political buff. If that's what we could have talked about this whole time, I would have. But I'm interested in the dynamic of it. I have my own opinions, but the dynamics are insane. As far as well represented to the outside, looking in, probably not, because we're seeing the worst of the both sides. So it's people don't really see those people who are that middle ground, if not leaning other ways, but are that middle ground on either side. And they just kind of want things to just go back to when they were boring and nobody knew what was going on. So I don't know. That's probably such a roundabout politician
you always
answer.
Want to know what's going on, but I think people like it better when they can trust what's going on and
not
trust
have
things
to
are
know.
going in the right way.
Right. I agree. I wish and I'm still fairly young. But I got into politics pretty young because that's when it was really heating up, 2012, 2016. But before that, people just didn't have to care, and that was okay. But now,
I disagree. People had to care. They didn't care, and that's what put us.
That's true.
That's what put us here.
That's true. I
People
should say
needed
they
to
felt
care
like
and
they
they
didn't
didn't
need
care.
to. Exactly. That I will agree.
So I'm eight-ish, 12 years ahead of where you started. I started getting into it way back then.
More so in a luxury, people think they didn't have to, and now they're now we need to pay attention, and it's crazy.
Yep, 100%.
Do you feel that the two-party system still works in today's time?
No, I do not. I could. That's my molehill.
Elaborate.
Or my molehill. My big ol'. I am I have a background in history and things like that, so I'm pretty big-ish history buff, but not so much in the exact dates and people and things like that, but the context of it. And I really believe that the two-party system was never built to last. And so I'm very much a believer in evolution and change in things, and times are so different, but there are still guiding principles we still should guide on and be founded on, but we need to evolve as well. I'm interested to see I was waiting to see your reactions when I said that, but I can't really tell.
we like to let people speak, and then we'll
you're get out the craziness, and then we'll.
No, you're good.
But I'm somebody who, the two-party system just doesn't seem realistic to me.
It doesn't, but do you have an idea to fix it? Because that's where we're at.
Yeah.
I think about it, but it's going to take such structural and long-term change that I don't think anybody's ever going to be ready for it.
So do you think the parliament system's a good system?
I don't know. I don't know
because
if any
they don't
system,
accomplish anything over there.
No, I agree.
That's the problem.
That I will agree. What are they doing over there? I couldn't tell you. But I don't think there's any perfect system. And it's weird to think that I wish a system didn't have to exist, but we need system to be a society and be fundamental. But I don't know. I ponder on it sometimes. And I'm what would work? Would a 3-party system work? Would a 4-party system work? I don't think
informed voters.
Amen. But
I think the two-party system was built to last. It just became a uniparty, and there is no two parties. It's just they want to rub each other's back, and they'll do, you vote for this thing, I'll vote for this thing, and we'll just pass whatever we want to pass, but not do anything for our constituents that voted for us.
Yeah,
we're gonna do what's in our interest and not what's in the nation's interest.
Yeah, I think those two parties have been, or two-party system have been blurred.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then it just, the interest of the small guy has been pretty lost.
Oh yeah,
and
for sure.
Money
for
and
many
middle
years.
guy. I wouldn't even say the small guy. It's the middle guy.
The middle guy. Because when the middle guy's doing well, the small guy can do well too.
Right.
That's the problem.
And then when the rich people do well, the small people do well because they get scraps that make them feel like they're doing well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure out where you actually stand. I was trying to listen to you and see where you actually stand, and I can't figure it out.
I think that's a good thing.
That might be a
Could
good
you
thing.
guess?
I don't want to guess.
Oh, come on.
I'm
guess.
horrible at guessing at this stuff.
I feel like
Vance can guess.
What is it, Vance? What do you think?
I'm not going to put my foot in my mouth.
He knows.
I don't know. We don't know.
Cole knows.
Cole knows.
I can tell.
I'm not sure. I'm really bad at guessing.
Do you know what we are?
sure you got it. If you've listened to anything we've ever said, you probably have a pretty good idea.
I mean, yes, I do.
We were not very shy about it.
But that's okay. Yeah. I mean, I
lean highly conservative.
If you looked at my, well, I kind of.
I didn't look at it too far. I just more looked at your. I kind of
locked that down now. So.
At your just your history, like your business, your working history in your college.
That I try to look up because I know that people look at it. But
I think everything else was you kept it pretty locked down. Yeah,
I try.
So you're still not going to tell us?
I'm afraid to tell you. That should tell you right there.
Okay, you're afraid to tell us. Okay. You haven't said anything too bad. So you lean a little more left. Mm-hmm. Left leaning. Mm-hmm. Is that because of some of the work that you do?
I was hoping, or not hoping, but I figured that's what you would ask. Yes and no. But a lot of the things that have happened just in my personal life have pushed me there. And like being that I was born and raised here and like my parents are pretty fundamentally Republican and things like that, it's just my own life experiences that have put me more to that side.
Do you think that the things that side has done has bettered your life?
I mean, yes, but I'm not somebody who's going to deny that there are things that they have that haven't, and that the other side hasn't done things that work for me and work for my family and things like that. But I'm somebody who recently, and I don't know if we want to really get into this. This is, I mean, more so personal for me, but like,
it's up to you.
Am I taking your time?
Nope.
You're like, say it. This is good content.
We're still doing good on time, so you're good.
I am somebody who struggled with infertility for a long time. I'm young. And then I had a miscarriage earlier this year, and I was required to have a DNC, which is a medical abortion. And I know that more right-leaning and more part of some of the Republican fundamentals are pro-life and things like that. And I respect people who have that personal belief. But for me, like knowing that those could take those two options away from me, like really worried me, because like that's.
But they can't take those options away from a medical abortion is not an elective abortion.
Well, I mean, even
95% of conservatives that are pro-life are anti-elective abortion.
Right. That I understand. But
that's my 100% pad. Like I am anti-abortion, and I am 100% elective abortions are a problem and should never be allowed.
Right, and I'm not here to necessarily.
That's where I'm saying
change your mind.
I don't think it's. I don't think it's the medical stuff that people have a problem with.
And I believe that, but I'm just saying from my standpoint is that when we try to get selective and put red tape and stringulations.
But we can do it on the rest of everything that the Democrats want to do. Is a lot of regulation.
I guess I don't. I guess I would need
everything on business, everything on taxes. They want to regulate everything. Food.
I mean, regulate for everything outside
That's
of like
a lot of red tape.
Bodily autonomy. No, and I'm not here to like.
I'm just messing with you.
You won't change his mind.
You're not
so
going
to
to
change. No, and I'm not here to like. You're wrong.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Like,
no,
you can
and
have your own beliefs.
We're not telling you. I mean, he might say that. But, I'm just.
But
kidding.
I mean, even with some of the work that I do, like, I mean, there are people in situations who are not ready to have children, and like the systems are pretty broken, so that doesn't help either. But I totally understand. Like as somebody who had struggles starting my own family, like you think I would be somebody that's like you're lucky to get pregnant. Like you have to keep it. Why would you not keep it? But I just
sorry to hear about the miscarriage.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That was tough, but
I'm sure.
But I'm currently pregnant, so
there you go.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
When it comes, so Vance and I disagree on some situations when it comes to abortion.
Oh.
Now, but I also don't. When it comes to, is that the only piece of the pie that's keeping you? I'm gonna guess you're probably left middle-ish. No, you're full blown.
A full blown is a lot.
Crazy.
But
no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, to your terminology, I'm a lunatic.
Because I'm like middle right-ish. You know, there's some things that I'll, whatever you want to call it, sway. My opinion can be swayed. But I guess what about?
I mean, like there's a bunch of things like immigration and.
Okay,
mental health and substance abuse.
What about immigration?
Oh man. I mean,
if there's a piece that you don't want to talk about, that's okay.
No,
I know
that's
we're
okay.
trying to do, this is all Bright Horizons too, and now we're getting political. We can always bring you back on our other podcast.
Oh, I would do that. Yeah. I would say, like, with immigration, like, I not only grew up with people who were of different backgrounds, didn't have their citizenship and things like that, but not only like that, but as I was going through school, both like in high school and then through college, through all my history stuff, like, it really confused me that, like, we really boasted that, like, we're the land of opportunity, we're the mixing pot, like, we have all the opportunities here and we welcome people, but then, like, not to say that we should just let anybody come in. That's not what I'm saying. But, like, we also, like, it was such a common thing, and it still is, that people are like, the common American can't pass the citizenship test, or it's so expensive. And
well, the people that just walk across the border can't do it either. So yeah, we're clean. And I get that.
And I'm okay with immigration as long as all the checks and balances are being met, right?
Right. But I just feel like the system could be improved. I'm very much a lot of our systems just need
the problem is it's either one side, it's only one way or the other. It's like completely open, everybody can just walk and do whatever they want, but that's not I don't think that's completely the case, but that is the way it is right now. But I think we need all walks of life to be here. It's just we don't, there's just certain types of people, I suppose.
Right.
Criminals, things like that are coming across. That
quite a few criminals that are born here too.
Oh, plenty that are born and they go to jail.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm kind of saying?
I mean, we have people that go to jail who are not from here.
They get let out right now. They commit crimes and get let out.
I don't know if that's true.
Well, you're apparently not paying attention to the news. So.
And then you said, because we'll go past that. Immigration, and then there was another one you were going to say? I didn't write it down.
Oh, like mental health and substance abuse and like firearms and weapons and things like that. Like, but I'm not like, people assume I'm like, take all the weapons and let everybody do whatever they want. Like, that's just not what I want. But I think I'm very much like, I'm pro mind your own business. Like, but I understand that some people just
explain that.
Like, bodily autonomy, like what you do in your home, like things like that should be on you. But then I guess I say that, but then on the flip side, like, I really believe in like sex education and things like that taught in schools. Like, I think that's very important too. And I know that's a hot button topic too, but
well, it depends on what age we're talking about and what we're talking about.
Well, I mean, we have curriculum for all ages that is age appropriate, but like, I don't think there's an age where they should not talk about it, per se, within whether they have understanding, like obviously like infants, newborns, doesn't make any sense, but like kids who have like any sort of consciousness, like there's something that could be talked about, starting that fundamentally in those principles early, establishing them.
Is that more looking for the abuse aspects?
Yeah. I mean, child sex abuse, and just physical abuse.
Mm-hmm. I could see that. What about, we kind of talked about the LGBTQ community. Where are your stances on the trans rights, bathrooms, all that kind of stuff?
I think there's a lot of misconception around that. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions around a lot of things like that.
On both sides. Yeah.
I would say, but like the people who, I would say more left-leaning side, and this is not just my own defense, our own defense, whatever.
No, you're good.
But like, I think that a lot of things get taken and ran with, like the specific instances of like the bathroom issues, like they're either really not that happening or they're happening like once and they're like being completely like blown out of proportion. Like for me,
it's the school ones for me that kind of get a little.
For me, like the ones like the litter box in the bathroom, like that is not real. Like that did not happen.
I have no idea.
And if it did happen one time.
Right. I'm more talking about having in schools being able to, the opposite gender into the bathroom. Like basically boys going into the women's bathroom.
I mean, if that's just kind of like a determining thing, like are they female presenting? Are they not? Like there needs to be some sort of discussion, obviously, if that's going to be allowed. But I can understand why somebody's like, I don't want this. You know, I understand the fear factor of it. Trust me, I do. But I also do this work, so I know that it's not trans people who are committing these crimes.
Well, there was one in Loudoun County. The dude was a female presenting, and he raped a girl in the bathroom twice in Loudoun County, Virginia. So it does happen in a school.
I would have to look into that. But
I mean, you can look into it. Look, Google Loudoun County. You'll find it. It's definitely true.
I mean, I'm not saying that it maybe never happens, but like that probably is not.
One time is too many.
One time is too many. One time of any sexual assault is too many.
Yep.
But again, it's like that putting light or
if
weight
it's
on a problem.
But if one time is too many, the best way to not have that happen is not allowing it at all.
But then we couldn't allow anybody in any bathroom.
No, you can allow all men in a bathroom and all women in a bathroom.
But like if somebody wants to hurt somebody, they're going to do whatever.
They are, but why add extra issues to it? Why allow an extra place to make it happen?
Well, because like, is it really happening?
Well, it did happen. We just determined one time is too many.
I guess you could say that, but enough to like.
One time is too many, in my opinion. Was
this like an actual like trans person?
Yes,
Or
he
was this-
dressed like a female, and
But that
said
doesn't
he
make
was
him a trans
female.
person.
It doesn't matter. All you got to do is dress like a female. You just said female presenting. You literally just said that female presenting.
Right. Like
He female presented.
like feels that is in transition, actively is that.
There is always going to be predators.
Right. But who commonly is the predators?
Apparently, the male that pretends he's a female.
That's not commonly the predator.
Well, he is. He did.
Once.
One time. The one time's too many.
And like we have to think about like how, and especially like with like the trans stuff in high schools, like how many trans kids are there in high schools?
There's a lot more. They're getting to be more and more because we're transing our kids.
Well, I mean, we're allowing kids to be who they are in certain expressions in a safe way, and that should be in a safe way, whatever that may be. But I like just the percentage of that happening. Like, I understand that it does happen and it shouldn't. Any sort of sexual abuse at all is too much, but like, should you hold an entire group accountable for certain isolated?
In my opinion, yes.
Well, then
I just said one time's too many. That's my drawing line, and we're never going to agree on this, and that's fine. I get it. But my point is,
there's a lot
time.
of thoughts that all men are bad too, because
that's what I was just going to say. Like,
yeah. So I mean, it's a double-edged sword.
Right.
And we're not attacking you.
I'm used to this.
I love arguing.
So do I. I'm the
Zach
liberal of
knows I
the
love
family.
that.
You don't think I get this all the
Yeah.
time?
Just don't worry. We're not attacking you. I just want to make sure you knew that.
Oh no, you won't make me cry.
We're not trying to.
I'm just kidding.
I've done that too many times. I don't enjoy it.
Very conservative. So I am like, this gets me going.
What about some of the still speaking on the trans, the medication, I forget that word for it.
Hormone replacements.
The hormone replacements in
therapy.
young children, or even I'm going to call it mutilation, taking pieces of the body off under a certain age.
I mean, I think that's a lot of misunderstanding too, is that like, we think that like doctors are just letting people do this, and they're just like, that's really not.
No, but if the law is stating that it can be done, I just don't think that's
and
right.
like, I think if you asked an actual trans person if they believe that like hormone therapy and sexual reassignment should be allowed at a young age, they would tell you no.
Right.
They would tell you.
And
no.
I've seen a lot of people say that. Yeah.
So
that's why
I think that's kind of like
the
an
lawmakers
argument
are
that's
trying to
being
do that.
made for them that like they're not even saying. So
But
it's like
somebody's making that argument.
Yeah, somebody must be.
And the left is voting for that argument.
well, I wouldn't
So
say,
somebody's making that argument.
No legislation has been put in and is planning
It's
to
literally
be.
happened in Minnesota.
And not nationwide, but it has happened in
Happened in
states.
Minnesota, Washington, and California.
What is being?
The state can take your kid from you if you don't if you don't transition them as young as 6 years old.
Again, I'd have to look into that because I would be.
It's okay.
Not to say I doubt you, but I would be surprised. And I would like to learn myself.
We looked up the bills.
But did they pass?
Yes.
they're passed.
Minnesota passed in like 2013,
I
2014.
can send them to you.
Washington passed in early.
Again,
We did it on a podcast.
I don't want to question your credibility,
No,
but
you're good.
I always wonder, and I always want to know.
California just passed. That just happened.
Yeah.
This in the last 6 months.
I'm trying to collect my thoughts now. Where we were just
No,
talking
you're okay.
about.
We're talking about the hormone blockers and but what they're saying is that
if a child goes to let's say the school nurse
teacher.
or the counselor or the teacher and says, my parents are not allowing me to do this, they will prescribe them and they will allow them to do these things
without the parents' consent.
I just find that really hard to believe.
Okay.
Or well, that, like, even if that was allowed, like I can't believe a doctor would be like, "Yep, this is worth doing."
I'll send it to you.
Because
I'll send it to you. I don't want you to talk about something you don't know about.
Okay.
Unless you want to.
No, I mean, I don't want to doubt that these things are happening, but like, is because there's a bill in place, like, are people really losing their kids because they're not allowing them to do hormone blockers? Like,
I guess we'll find out once school gets going here. The school wasn't in session, so.
That was only in California. It's been happening in Minnesota and Washington for years.
But I'm very numbers based, so I'd have to see like numbers.
What's your number? What's your threshold? What number? 1? Because mine's 1.
Like for this to be happening
over and over. 1. If a single time this has happened, it's too many. I'm the same way as a conservative that hates abortion, generally a proponent of the death penalty. I would rather 20 people that are guilty go free than one person that's innocent die.
So you are pro death penalty?
I'm generally pro death penalty, but I'm also on the side that, like, when I say 1 is too many, one innocent person dying is too many.
Right, on the death penalty.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I don't mean this in like a derogatory way, but like you could understand why somebody would see like how those are like opposing.
What's opposing? Abortion and death penalty? That's not opposing.
One would say it is.
How is it opposing?
Because
the death penalty is not.
When do we determine when life is valuable?
I guess we can figure that out, but that doesn't matter.
And if
is one guilty or is one innocent? Is a baby guilty? Whether it's a life or not, we're beyond that.
Is like a criminal really guilty?
If he's guilty, I just told you 1 is too many. One innocent person is too many. I just said I would let 10 to 100 go free if one person.
So then we should probably not have the death penalty at all by that.
Yeah, but it has nothing to do with abortion because they're completely different conversations. Because there is absolutely 0 chance a baby is ever guilty. 0.
I mean, you could reverse the guilty scenario with like viability.
Guilty. I'm talking guilty.
Right. Guilty or not, but like viable or not. Like what?
You're talking medical abortions again and not elective abortions.
No, there's elective abortions who are before viability.
Which is completely illegal. In my opinion, should never be allowed. Should never be allowed. Elective should never be allowed.
So those people who are forced to give birth, then like what... In your opinion, like, are they allowed to use social programs? Are they allowed to?
Absolutely.
But then we had the viewpoint of like people taking advantage of social programs.
Or don't get pregnant.
I mean, if that could be the answer.
So, personal responsibility.
I mean, don't get pregnant by a lot of circumstances, you know?
That's kind of where I'm.
I'm not here to change your mind.
When it comes to like rape and incest, that's where we disagree, right? That's where him and I are going to disagree on abortion. I don't think it. I think that if it's a case where the woman didn't have a choice, blah blah blah. That's where I stand on that one, and he knows that. And
like that, they should be allowed.
Yeah.
And you think they shouldn't?
I don't think
he doesn't believe
just because there's one wrong, another wrong doesn't make it right.
I hear that a lot. Which. I can understand. I can understand the mentality.
That child is an evil child. I can understand. That baby is an evil baby.
That's not what I'm saying.
I'm just saying.
That's not what I'm saying. I don't think that you can be pro-life in a pro-choice environment. You cannot be pro-choice in a pro-life environment.
I'm fine with that.
I'm just saying that's just a matter of fact.
But technically, with the medical stuff, I mean, you could, because a doctor could. If it came down to rape and incest, you can't tell me that a medical abortion wouldn't be allowed.
But like,
you know what I'm saying?
In terms of rape, like it would not be a medically necessary.
I'm sure you could get a doctor to do it.
But then you have issues of like lawsuits, malpractice, and then you're putting strings and like, then you're putting like doctors like.
I don't foresee that'd be a malpractice situation, would it?
I don't know, but you're saying like this, putting those strings and like stipulations like.
I'd rather have a few.
I think it just opens a can of worms.
Strings than be all willy-nilly. That's my thing.
What?
I'd rather have a few strings than be all just Wild Wild West.
Like just using abortions for like
just
anything?
elective for anything. That's what he's saying. You know what I mean?
And I think it's important
and a lot of that's happening too.
To recognize that like the like argument that like people use like abortion for like birth control, not true. That is not true.
Again, one time is too many, and there's women out there that shout their abortion.
And the circumstance that they do, like
they shout it and they love it. They enjoy it.
There are a handful that do, and like
then that's one too many.
By who?
I said one is too many. I stand by this every time I say one is too many. So I want to stop that. I get it where I'm at. I am on the extreme of it.
For me, like even if I was like pro-life, like I'm not silly. Like they're gonna still happen. So like I'd rather somebody get it done safely. I guess I care about people.
Because there's a lot of coat hangers happen in the alleys, huh?
Well, there would be if there wasn't access.
No, they're not. No, they wouldn't.
Well, then, I mean, you could say the same could be said with people just getting abortions with like a punch card. Like that's not happening.
Well,
but people,
they allow abortion up to birth.
No, they don't do that.
Okay.
Like the term late term abortion is literally like misused.
So Colorado allows up to birth.
Mm-mm.
Yes, they do.
Unless it puts the mother at risk. No, they do not.
Yes, they do.
No.
Okay. It's definitely a law.
Unless it puts the mother's life in jeopardy.
Okay.
And you can't tell me that any doctor would be like, yep, you don't want to have this, so we'll just take it. Like they're not. I don't think I would ever. One would assume.
Ooh, okay.
And like I said, I understand why people feel this way because like people should have their kids. People should want to have kids. I totally understand that. That's how I am for me. But like I see things all the time and I not even just see, but like with my own eyes hear and what I do for work and things like that. But like, do I want kids born into poverty? Do I want kids born addicted to substances? Like, no. Like, I guess I'm on this understanding that
you're
good judge and jury then to determine what's a good life then.
Is it not judge and jury to tell somebody they have to give birth?
You have to give that child the ability to determine if his life is good or not. Does that child determine that his life would have been better being dead or better being born in poverty and come out of poverty?
You know how hard that is?
Is it possible? Has one person done it?
Maybe.
People have done it.
But like if you're born into poverty, like the likeliness of getting out is like impossible.
So his life has anybody born in poverty, their life has zero meaning.
No, but should anybody have to endure poverty? No.
Poverty now is nothing like poverty was hundreds of years ago.
Like it's not as bad?
Not near as bad.
Oh gosh, I wish that was true.
Well, it's definitely true. We're the poorest of the poor here are way better off than they were hundreds of years ago.
And like in what way?
It's just like the amount of everything
like
out
we're
there.
Like for like homelessness and poverty, like we're at an all-time like high. Probably. I mean, it's plateaued. I guess the maybe.
And a lot of that's due to the economy, but there are programs available that some homeless just don't want to use to.
Yeah,
because
they love to do drugs.
I mean, if I was full disclosure, if I was homeless, why would you not like
do drugs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would you like? If I know I can't afford an apartment, so if I can do what I got to do to not hate my life, like that's what I'm going to do.
I guess I'd try to figure it out
because there are systems in place to help people. I granted they're not the greatest systems in place, but I do know a lot of homeless choose not to utilize the systems. Right.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say it's because they enjoy being homeless.
Well, right. It's just they don't want to have to follow the rules of.
Yeah, I mean,
what it takes to
that
be in those
I
shelters.
will agree with that, but then I think that there are some programs that just are very difficult.
Yeah, and then my next statement would be, do you think we need to kind of relook at the foster system then?
Yes.
If that's a case of, allowing the kids to be born, are you saying that in a good life, they could, if we revamped their foster system or foster care system, had a little more checks and balances with them, that they could have a better life.
If we had better social programs and better foster care system, and like all those systems surrounding people and family, like, is there less of an excuse to have one? Yes. But like, it's unrealistic that that's going to happen. Unfortunately, I would hope that's my dream. But if we can't fix those programs, then like, what do we expect?
Yeah. Well, all programs, not just those programs, need
revised.
Like that.
Yeah,
Revised
that's very much. I'm very much like,
we think all 3
tear it
letter
all down and
agencies should
rebuild
just
it.
be gone. So, in our opinion. Okay, let's we'll get off that. We'll get off those subjects.
Why? That was fun.
It was fun. Well, because we'll have you back. Because I don't want people are gonna think that we're crazy people on this one. No, but we'll maybe bring you back on our other podcast that does more political speak. And
So which one is this? This isn't.
this is touching base.
Oh, okay. Are you talking about useless assumptions?
Correct.
See, I know.
Yeah. So it'd be fun. We've always been looking for somebody who's willing to have.
You guys never have like
conversation.
left-leaning people.
Nobody wants to come on.
So I was like, do I tell them?
Nobody wants to. Nobody wants to come on. We say it all the time that people can come on anytime they want to.
I would love to, but I would need like fact checking. Not even just for anybody.
Yeah,
Just for
that.
everybody. Like I would need, because like that's
We
just
can
how I
pull it
am.
all
Like
up.
if I'm wrong, I'll fully admit
Yeah,
it.
we can pull it all up. We can do that.
Is
We
that
just
Cole?
couldn't do it right now. I'd get it all ready. I'd have it all ready for Cole just to pull up. So he's getting better.
I'm a little slow.
He's a little slow at just doing it on the fly. So, but yeah, we can definitely do that sometime. We'll have to schedule that and have you come in and we can talk about it.
You're gonna block my number when I leave.
I will not do that.
He's like, do it.
No. We want this type of. We need more
discourse.
More conversations need to happen for things to change.
Amen.
So,
I can't believe nobody. Have you even asked?
yeah, we ask people all the time.
Like left-leaning people.
Because most people don't understand the news that's going on.
Yeah. So like when we go
I
into
do.
topics, nobody understands what we're going to talk about.
You just laugh.
Well, I mean, you
So-
just knew that 3 states didn't have certain laws in place.
I didn't say I didn't know that, but I would need to look.
You don't
into it.
believe that that's true.
I would like I said, I would have to look into
We'll get it all ready. We'll get it all ready. We'll have conversations. We'll kind of give you the topics that are going on, so I can send you some things, and we can get it all figured out.
And for me, like I said, like even if that is in place, like was it passed? Is it in place? Yes, whatever.
Yeah.
Like are
One.
people?
One's too many.
But
And I
is there
will stand
one?
by that.
Is
I will
there
never
one?
stop saying that.
I understand that. I understand the principle because like I believe that in some aspects too. But like, is there even one?
Yeah, we'll take a deep dive into the verbiage so you can see that it allows for it's very broad, just like every
Yes,
other bill
that's what I figured.
under the sun. So,
That's what I figured. It's probably very broad and deep into a bill.
Which is even worse.
I'm not saying that's
that makes it
good.
way
I'm not
worse.
saying that's good. I know that we're
because
good at
having
bill
more broad
stuffing
language
and
is not good.
yeah, amen. But I just like just because it's in there, are people like really being affected by it? Not to say it's okay,
Yeah,
but I just like that realisticness.
yeah.
Again, not that it's okay.
We'll do it. It'll be fun. I think it'll be fun. A lot of fun.
I can already see like the caption now. We own this liberal.
No, we don't. We don't do any. We don't do any.
That was a joke. That was a joke.
No. We try very hard not to do any clickbait. We did it one time, and it was just to get back at the newspaper and the.
Oh, can we talk about the newspaper? You really like need to leave my house.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay, we're talking about like Norfolk Daily News. I probably shouldn't.
You can do it on this
We've taken
podcast.
many shots.
Is
at
it going to
Norfolk
be
Daily News.
taking a shot?
I mean,
Go for
they
it.
don't.
We're all for that.
Even like in terms of like Bright Horizons, they are not responsible with journalism in terms of like domestic violence, sexual assault.
What do you mean?
Like irresponsible journalism in the fact that like they have disclosed that people have sheltered in Norfolk and they give details and they plaster people's intimate details. And I get that that's public record, but that doesn't need to be front page news.
Right.
Like we had 2 recently that were our clients and they literally said like, oh, this person sought shelter in Norfolk and this is what he did and this is his name, this is her name. And this person was from a small community and now they're being like shunned because like they knew the perpetrator and now the victim is being like shunned because like, why'd you do that? He's getting consequences now, blah, blah, blah. So that just was like,
So they're abusing the public knowledge aspect of that. and not.
Yeah, like they'll take a police report, or they'll take like a. I can't think of what when they talk like aloud. I like a podium, like my brain's. A press release.
Press conference.
Press release, and they don't have any sort of like they see it rather as news, like, oh, people will like to know this, people will like to read this, it's interesting, rather than taking in the discretion of like, maybe this isn't safe.
Yeah.
And they never share like our resources ever. Which, why would you run a domestic violence piece without including resources?
They don't give any of this information up here that I wrote down? Mm-mm. Interesting.
No. Like, I wish if they were going to report these things that they say, like, Bright Horizons is here.
Yeah, they give you a whole deal. Give the address, give the phone number, give the emergency contact, give the all that stuff.
Nope.
Interesting. Good to know. Thank you for that.
That's a personal thing. That doesn't reflect my employer.
Does not reflect Bright Horizons. That is a personal thing. Okay. Well, last question. Where do you see yourself going in the future? Are you enjoying where you are? Do you see yourself staying in Northeast Nebraska?
I do. I love what I do, so I want to stay in this field, but I'm not totally sure what that looks like. I've always considered law school. That's something I've always thought about. But
how about politics?
Yeah, I love politics too, but that's something we have to get into. I
had to throw that in
my
there.
youth
Sorry.
was a mess, so I'm not sure if I'm quite. That's a dream. Like that was always my dream job, was to be a politician. But I don't know. I'd like to do like legislation of some kind. That would be great. But as far as like realistically, I'll probably be here. I love what I do. I love the area, and I never thought I'd come back, so I'm not leaving now. So, but I mean, I liked where I lived before, being like by Council Bluffs in Omaha.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do similar work over there. So it would be really awesome to do work over there because it's a larger scale and things like that. And you get more connected to that legislative piece.
Yeah.
But
starting a family kind of changes that a little bit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And my family all lives over here. So
that's good. It's good to be around family when you're starting to have kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that. Well, cool. Well, I'm going to give out all this stuff one more time, and then I'll kind of we'll give you a thank you and all that good stuff. So, Bright Horizons, 601 East Norfolk Avenue. Phone number is 402-379-2026. They accept cash donations. They have wish lists on the Facebook page and other social media. Bright Horizons NE, or is it just Bright Horizons? Does it matter?
Our website is brighthorizonsne.org, but I believe our Facebook is just Bright Horizons, and our Twitter is Bright Horizons NE.
Perfect. Emergency number is 877-379-3798. The text 24-hour number is 402-370-8817.
Yep, both 24 hours.
Awesome. Well, thanks to my co-host Vance Neidig and producer Kole Peterson. Without them, the show would not be what it is. Huge thank you to Bre for taking all of our fun federal politic questions and giving all of her information on the Bright Horizon stuff. We really appreciate you making time for us.
I loved it. And
we really appreciate what you do too.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
It's a good process or a good program that you guys do. So
I appreciate that.
Very much a fan.
And I appreciate being given like a platform to talk about it because I want to get us out there and
hopefully we get you some donations out of it. So all of our listeners, go ahead and reach out to them and donate what you can. And
also remember our Swearing is Caring event. It'll you can always put who you want.
That could be you could be your nominee. Bright Horizons.
That could be your nominee. So we do a charity event every year.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
During Lent, and at the end of Lent, we let people pick which organization gets our charity, gets our funds.
Who's been recent picks?
We've only done it 1 year. This will be our second year.
So
we just started the podcast last fall.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, we haven't even been a year yet. I don't remember who else got up for it.
There was there was 4 or 5.
The Northeast food pantry one.
Community college food pantry.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So and we were able to give them $1,000, and hopefully this year will be a lot. That was a very small event,
but that's still a really good start for your first year. That's great.
So we're hoping for a bigger event this year, and everybody out there, if Bright Horizons is what you want to give your vote to, go ahead and
survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault and trafficking.
There you go.
Donations go directly to survivors.
Perfect. That's good to hear too, because a lot of nonprofits you hear, there's always it's kind of a trickle down on the money.
Yeah, I mean there is some of that, but we've been lucky with grants recently that we've kind of established ourselves pretty well. That whatever we can give, we will.
Do you know? Awesome. Probably don't know what the percentage is, right?
Of what?
Of the money. Like a lot of nonprofits give their like percentage of funds.
That I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Sorry to ask that. That's a hard one.
That's okay. We have a finance lady. She would know. I would not.
Okay, that's fine. Again, thank you, Bre. Thanks for letting us berate you on the federal stuff. And
I like it. I like it.
We'll bring you back. I really think we should bring you back on a useless assumptions episode, and we could have a lot of fun with that.
I agree.
Perfect. Well, keep on the lookout for more great episodes, and we will see you guys next week.